Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝗧𝗜𝗚𝗚𝗏 on Wattpad. Now let's start. 2 years later, Izuku POV. It's been 2 years after the attack of the Paranormal Liberation Front. From that fight it was an estimate of over 100 casualties. Some to fallen heroes, some to innocent lives that were lost, and the rest were to the damage done to the city of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 and 𝗧𝗏, my hometown. In the end, the heroes were able to prevail fatally. But at the sacrifice of a noble hero who did what he could to stop the once great evil known as All for One. The retired #1 hero across the globe in Japan. He was a true hero, a symbol to the world to show that anything is possible. He showed that to me as well. He was the greatest mentor a boy could have to grow stronger. But now everything changes. After those 2 years I was praised and honored for taking down Shigaraki, but in the end, he had escaped due to suffering immense injuries. After his escape, crime had begun to decrease. There were less villains popping out now. There were less robberies or traffic jams due to outraged villain fights. People were able to start rebuilding their homes and destroyed businesses. For the students of 𝗧𝗜𝗚, we were tasked with helping out and we didn't have a problem about it. In less than months, several businesses were back up and running and streets and pavements were remodeled to fix up the damages. All the debris left over was quickly destroyed due to those with projection quirks and those who had strong quirks to dispose of them easily. With our help we were able to help society stand back up on their feet. But through the rebuilding process there was also love building up in it. Achiko, the most wonderful girl I've ever known since I stepped foot on 𝗧𝗜𝗚 grounds, had asked me out. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't stutter or massively think on it, as this was something I had always wanted. This was something I dreamed of happening. So, after I said yes, we started going on dates, a few random encounters with several villains who thought it was okay to come back out, a few stops by some of our classmates who saw us, and just enjoying ourselves all together. Throughout that entire time with me being with her, I imagined what would have life been like without quirks. Sure, they're the best things that ever happened to us, but it also turned out to be the thing that caused the most destruction for us. People abused their powers for their own good. For what purpose? Some were outcast by society for their quirks being different or labeled as a villain's quirk. Others see it as a right to extend those powers as the natural law of it being a part of ourselves. Leaving the question, are quirks really worth having? Call me a crazy, but the world I live in is even crazier. But I wouldn't change it, and I think that's why on this moment, the rarest I ever thought I was ever going to be able to be, was dress up and be suited to walk across the stage at My Hero Academia. Bakugo, I nerd. Izuku. I looked over to see him moving the tassel on his cap around as he looked at me. Bakugo, been calling your name for the past 20 minutes now. What the hell is going on in that thick head of yours that you can't hear me? He questions me as I feel a small tingling sensation flood the back of my head. That same sensation only happens when my danger sense is going off towards an ill intent, and it's been acting up for the past few days now. Izuku, oh, it's nothing really, I say, lying through my teeth as I reach my hand to rub the back of my neck uneasily. Knowing 𝗀𝐻𝐿 though, I know he saw right through my lie, as he wasn't one to quickly fall for my lies. Bakugo, quit lying. I can see it through your eyes. You're nervous about something. What is it? He asks me as he took a seat beside me on the bench. Izuku, I don't know, but it's like something's about to happen. Something big, and I haven't felt this feeling since the Paranormal Liberation Front attacked when Shigaraki reawakened for the first time. I feel like whatever it is giving off this dangerous intent, it's going to come to the school. Bakugo, are you sure? If it's Shigaraki, we can take that bstrd down the same as last time. Izuku, I know. But this time feels different. It kind of freaks me out, you know. Bakugo, freaks you out? Please, you got to be joking. He says, standing up as he looked back at me with a furious expression. Bakugo, you're freaked out. The same guy who's the 9th wielder of One for All and possibly the last wielder of its power, the same guy who took down a serial killer from attempting to kill a defenseless kid, the same guy who took down the boss of the 𝐶𝐻 Hasasaki, the same guy who protected the school festival from being ruined by some cheap villains, and even the same guy who was able to go toe-to-toe with Shigaraki and send him running away. He states, telling valuable points in what I have done in all of my years at being at this school. Throughout all of them I have always engaged into fights with several people who were attempting to take down what was built on priceless land. Bakugo, if you don't get your head straight, I'll straighten it for you. You of all people shouldn't have nothing to worry about. He says, slapping my back as he holds his hand firmly on my shoulder. Bakugo, after all, today's the day, you idiot. He says with a smile as I felt reassured after what he said. Even though Bakugo sometimes let off as aggressive and prideful, he has a way with reassuring someone that everything will be okay if you look on the bright side of the problem. But he wasn't always like that. Back then he and I used to be close friends until he learned that I was quirkless and began to bully throughout my childhood. On the day of the last day of school, he decided to take his bullying further to tell me to give up on being a hero and to take a swam dive off the roof of the school. From there I was fueled with the drive to push forward no matter how much it had hurt to hear those words. On that same day, he was attacked by a sludge villain that caused destruction by forcing Bakugo to use his quirk unwillingly to create such damage. With the heroes unable to help him, I was the one who stuck out of the crowd to go and help him, and I did as so. Wounding the sludge villain that was attacking him, I ended up setting him free as we saved by All Might who had dealt the finishing blow. Afterwards, we were set free to go as we went down our separate paths home, only to cross back as he shouted that me saving him wasn't anything to boast about. But that was when I realized that from our dark past with each other, a bonding rivalry will ignite to push us beyond our limits. Izuku, I guess you're right, 𝐀𝐮. Standing up I placed on my cap and moved my tassel around my head as I looked at him. Bakugo, come on you idiot. We got a graduation to get to. He said with a smile as he wrapped his arm around my shoulder and pat his hand on my cap as we left out of the locker room. As we walked into the halls of the school, we ended up meeting some of our classmates, Todoroki, Kirishima, Tokoyami, and Ida. Ida, Midoriya, there you are. Kirishima, yeah man, everyone's looking for you. The two said. All four of them had on their caps and gowns as they stood waiting for us. Izuku, yeah, sorry about that. I had a little trouble with getting ready. Todoroki, is Bakugo bothering you again? He asked. Bakugo, shut the hell up, icy hot. I didn't do a thing to him. He said grumpily as he stood in front of him and glared. Ida, all right now Bakugo. Today is our last day at 𝐻𝐿. As upperclassman. After this day we will finally become official heroes. Tokoyami, he's right. That means we need to be heading to the auditorium so that we can meet up with the others and our teachers so we can begin the walk. He says as we all nod at each other besides Bakugo who grunted with his arms folded. We laughed at his expression minus Todoroki who only smiled as we walked down the hallway to the auditorium. Upon opening the door, we stepped in as we saw all of our classmates standing on the stage as they were taking pictures one by one. Photographer, alright, say My Hero Academia. Mina, My Hero Academia. She said with a gleeful smile as the camera flashed taking her picture in her cap and gown. Photographer, alright, next. After she got off of the stool, Mineta had walked up to the stool. After the war he had started to train himself to grow stronger. In doing so he gained a huge growth spurt. He was now as tall as Aoyama now and his hair was now linked in a chain of ball due to his hair growing as well. Photographer, alright, now say My Hero Academia. Mineta, My Hero Academia. He said with a soft smile as he looked at the camera as it flashed taking his picture. Photographer, alright, next. Ida, come on you guys, it's time to take our pictures. We have to hurry up if we want to get this done. He says as we follow him to the stage. As we did, one of our classmates had spotted us as they looked at me. Mina, there he is. There's Mr. Big Hero himself. Kaminari, Midoriya. Hollering out my name, my classmates began to cheer as they clapped at the sight of me. Ever since the battle, my classmates came up with the name, Mr. Big Hero, in a way to congratulate me for defeating Shigaraki. I won't lie, it annoying at first hearing how everyone was praising me with that name, but then I started to understand what it meant to others who saw me. I went from a quirkless nobody to a hero recognized by even the greatest and the lowest of the lowest in less than a year. I think I deserve some kind of recognition for that. Right? Mina, hey, there Midoriya. What was taking you so long? Izuku, nothing. I was just late getting ready, that's all. Kaminari, well, you sure took your time, celebrity. He says as the two wrapped their arms around me as they led me up the stairs to the stage. Izuku, hee, I guess you're right. Mina, yay. Mr. Celebrity, we just want to know what's going on through your mind right now as you're only just a few minutes away from becoming our official hero. I mean, you are being gifted an award, right? She asked as if she was holding a mic to me as everyone in the room looked at me, even the photographer who stood up from behind his camera as it had a red blinking light on as it was set to record. Izuku, hey, you know what? I feel great. I feel excited, whelmed in fact. That all of you, even the people outside or those who are coming to the graduation, think so highly of me. And that means a lot that you all do. I say as I see some facial expressions began to soften or brighten as I smiled. Izuku, I mean, I went from being somebody who was outcast by all because of my difference, but now I'm being recognized because of that difference, and it was all because of the one person who believed in me that made it happen. I can be nothing but thankful for that. Holding the little All Might trinket I got from a store long ago when I was born. I could do nothing but think of my mentor as this was all because of him that this happened. Izuku, I guess what I'm really trying to say is that I'm glad I was able to live this moment with you all. And I couldn't have been able to do it without you. All, WhatIf. They all screamed as I was swarmed with hugs as they all hugged me. Looking over towards the photographer, I could see he had recorded the entire thing as he stopped it once he saw everybody hugged together. Photographer, okay, this is a good shot that I can't afford to miss. Can everyone say, My Hero Academia? He says as everyone turns their heads to face him as I could feel someone grab my hand. Looking over, I saw that it was Achiko who smiled at me warmly. Returning the smile, I looked back at the photographer as we all screamed. All. My Hero Academia. Flash Shigaraki's POV. It's been 2 years since I went into hiding. I've been staying at the underground laboratory of Dr. Ujiko. The lab had been incoherent without him here since he was captured by the heroes at the hospital he conducted his experiments at. Shigaraki. 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 Shigaraki, and in my head, the voices of those I killed or had died due to my actions haunted me every waking second. It was like nails scratching against a chalkboard every time they spoke. Using the pain nullification and mental blocker, I was able to calm down the pain, but it didn't help. There was just too many. We'll let them burn. I want to live in a world where we all can be free to do whatever we want. How can you protect us when you don't even know what we're supposed to be doing? I can feel myself splitting apart. I'll follow you wherever you go, Tamura Shigaraki. Spinner, protect Shigaraki. This will be my last time to shine. Their voices. The voices of those who followed me, who fought alongside me. Dabi, Toga, Spinner, Mr. Compress. Twice. They are those who've fallen fighting for a better cause. One we wanted to make our future. A future where we didn't have to live our lives through the laws made by others who made selfish choices depending on the actions that were presented before them. Choices that costed so many lives and ruined them just because. Shigaraki and Reiwa. Writhing amongst the grounds like cockroaches just because we're searching for an opening into something new. Something profound. Crash, and it's all the fault of this just society made to pull strings on the lives of people who just wanted to live an ordinary lifestyle. A life free of any rules and laws. To be themselves. That poor child. I'm sure a hero will come and save you soon. I'm sorry, Tenko. I didn't mean for Dad to find out. Tenko, you have to stop scratching your face. You'll only make the rash even worse. Tenku. Hearing their voices, it felt like my head was about to explode. The quirks inside of me were being affected by it as my mutation quirk began to mess with physiology, causing my bones to shift and traverse beneath my flesh painfully as my breaths were slowed. Shigaraki, teach. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Tamura. Silence. The voices were hushed in an instant and were replaced with the voice of the only man on the world that could understand my overbearing hatred and anger for society. My Mr. All for One. The greatest evil ever born into this world, with his unique power being named after him and bestowed to me. Shigaraki, 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴, what do you want now? You and these stupid voices have been nagging inside of my head for the longest. Therefore, I come in good grace and news. The new 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 are finished thanks to the good doctor's backup system that he had installed before his capture. He says as I look towards the large computer that had trails of purple lights glowing along it. AFO. With this we can activate the new breed of 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 that are even better than the high-ends. Shigaraki, better than the high-end 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿. I find that hard to believe. I questioned as I stood up and walked over towards the computer with my torn black cape sliding on the ground behind me. Holding up my injured hand, I was missing 2 fingers due to my fight with Redestro. Activating the software quirk I had that allowed me to hack into any and all technology. The computer screen glitched for a moment before accessing a file called 𝐻𝐻𝐻 Improved 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿 Shigaraki, 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. Let's see what this is all about. Clicking on the space bar, a picture came across a screen of a creature pure white with dark hollow eyes. They shared the same feature as the first 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻 except its differences. These were more bulk and more dangerous. They had 2 white horns that extended from their heads and dark claws that stuck out from their hands. From what it says, they can hold up to 5 quirks and all have one that shares through all. Kinetic duplication. On the side, a list of different quirks showed what they had inside of them as a smile crept up onto my face. Shigaraki, so this is what we have been waiting forever for. Therefore, great work can never be rushed, only perfected. He says in the back of my head as behind me a machine began to wire to life as a black metal tower was lowered down. As I turned to face it, the tower began to open itself up to show that inside of it was my repaired suit that I wore when I awakened from the process of receiving my emperor's power. Therefore, and even great evil has to show his face in style. Shigaraki, it's not style. I reply back to him as I walk towards the suit so that I could change into it. After hooking the suit back on my body and feeling the mechanism of its fit its way across my body, I placed on the cape that I took from that hero as it flapped across my shoulder as if I was a hero. Something I idolized once upon a time ago. Now the only thing I idolize about it is its downfall at the palm of my hands. Shigaraki, it's chaos. Looking up to the ceiling, I raised my hand as I used the radio wave quirk to activate the roof. As the doors began to open, I looked to the sky as dirt began to fall into the lab, allowing the sunlight to bleed through. Upon feeling the sunlight for the first time in forever, I felt rejuvenated, reborn. My muscles flexed upon balling my fist as I thought on what the plan was for me. Shigaraki, it's showtime. With the doors opened, I bent down as I felt my muscles flex. Pushing off with my feet, I flew 12 feet into the air before activating my airwalk quirk as I suspended myself in the air. Using the search quirk, I began tracking him as he was the main target for this attack. Locating him, I found out he was at you. As I pushed myself forward as I flew through the air towards his location. Shigaraki/AFO, here we come, Izuku Midoriya. Author's POV. After the class of 3A were done taking their pictures in the auditorium, they were all instructed to leave for the gymnasium as that was where the graduation ceremony would commence. Walking through the hallway, Izuku moved his tassel around his face as he felt someone with soft hands grab his own. Looking over to his left, he saw that it was his wonderful and peachy girlfriend, Ochako. Izuku, oh, hey Yurika. Ochako, hey, Izuku. Are you ready for graduation? She asked him with a small smile as she moved her hair from in front of her eye. After 2 years, she had allowed her hair to grow out as she had someone roll up her hair into a ponytail with 2 bangs on the sides of her head. She had makeup on that only enticed her beauty and made Izuku's heart skip a beat. Izuku, why? Blush, I mean after this we get to finally become official heroes. He says, holding her hand as he looked back at her with a soft smile of his own. Ochako, yeah, and I can't wait for the after-party. I mean after all, today is your birthday. She says to him as if her voice had echoed. Everyone had stopped as they turned around and looked at him shocked. Today's your birthday. 𝐼𝐮𝐬/Kaminari, and you didn't tell anybody. They all shouted as one by one he was barraged with everyone telling him happy birthday. With everyone telling him happy birthday, they were unable to notice that someone had walked up on them, wearing an all-black tuxedo and black shoes with a cane. Why aren't you all in line? Recognizing the stern voice, all of the students quickly separated as they got back in their corrective lines. All, sorry Mr. Aizawa. Aizawa, don't be sorry, be accountable. After all, today is you all's graduation ceremony. He says, walking past them as he stood in front of Izuku, who nervously stared at his teacher as he wore an eye patch over his left eye. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku, Mr. Aizawa. He replies as he stared at Izuku sternly as he moved his hand up towards his head. For a minute he thought that he was going to be hit, only to feel him pat his head down. Aizawa, happy birthday, problem child. He says as everyone was surprised as they looked back to see the shocking action of their teacher congratulating him. Aizawa, even though you're all standing here, you do have a ceremony to get to. So let's go. All right. They all responded as he led them out of the hallway to the gymnasium. As they were, Ochako grabbed his hand as he smiled as they walked into a bright light at the end of the hallway that would lead to the gymnasium. Upon walking into the gymnasium, they were met with the sounds of screaming and cheers. Up in the stairs, floors, and seats, people of the city who were family or friends or even just people who had came to congratulate them were there. For this event, they allowed those in the nearby community to come for this special occasion. Present Mike, and coming in hot, give it up for the spectacular class of 3. He shouted in the mic as everyone cheered for them as they looked around to see their families. Smiles came upon their faces as they stared in joy at this moment. Inko, that's my baby boy. Eri, that's my big brother. Mirio, go Midoriya. The 3 screamed as Izuku spotted them in the crowd as he nervously sweat dropped at this. His mom had a shirt custom made with him on it and held up a big poster in her hand, blocking the view for a few people, with his hero name on it. Beside her was Mirio, who stood beside a 7-year-old Eri. The 2 were wearing jackets with his hero design on it as they were shouting for him. Melissa, go Izuku. From across the gym were the shields. Both her and her father were there as they wore black professional suits and dresses. All around the gym were pro heroes and people that he knew from saving or being around them. It was really a spectacular moment for him to be in as he felt Bakugo pat his hand against his back. Bakugo, come on. We gotta get to our seats. He told him as the 2 walked to their seats as they stood awaiting for them to be told to sit down. Walking up the steps was their homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, also known as the pro hero, Eraserhead. As he walked up to the podium, he stood behind the mic as his best friend, Present Mike, set it up for him. Aizawa, thank you, Present Mike. You may all be seated. He speaks into the microphone as everyone sits down. Those in the seats quieted down as he waited for his time to speak. Aizawa, before I start, I would like to say this. If I could, I would send all of you back to your first years without any concerns or problems. He says, activating his quirk to show how serious he was, as some of those in the crowd felt conflicted by this, starting an outrage as they were starting to fuss. Hearing them fuss and shout, Aizawa's hair shadowed over his eyes for a moment as he then began to chuckle into the mic. Aizawa, hee-ha, that was just a class humor. But have to start listening to my wife more often. This is fun. He said to everyone as they all began to laugh, even his students who understood his little humor. Meanwhile, as this was happening in the city of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, its citizens were casually going about their day. Normally shopping, playing around outside, walking, or just eating in a cafe. Inside of a cafe, a man was sitting at a table as he was reading the newspaper for the school's graduation ceremony. On the table he had a cup of coffee that was still warm due to the steam rising out from it. But while the steam was rising into the air, the coffee itself began to ripple. Seeing the coffee ripple, the man felt the ground shake a little, like it was a tremor. Again the ground shook, this time a bit heavier than the last, as he stood up from his table, noticing that the other people inside of the shop felt the ground shake. Looking outside, they watched as people ran down the road as a car was sent flying down the street, crashing into a light pole as it fell to the ground. Running out of the shop, the people were shocked to see 5 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 were destroying the city as they ripped apart the landmarks and destroyed the pavements of the road. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿. One of the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 screeched as this one took off down the road in full speed. The others soon began to follow after it once they heard the radio waves pass by them. And they were all heading in the direction towards the school. Izuku, as the teacher of these wonderful students before me, I would like to say that I am honored to have been a big mentoring figure in their life. These students are hardworking, determined, talented, and passionate about what they have done to achieve at their stay here at this prestigious school. He says as he looks on through his students as some of the female students were shedding a few tears as the males held proud looks on their faces. Out on the street, one of the winged 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 flew down to attack the police that had been called to stop them. In their attempt, they ultimately failed due to one of the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 flipping their cars and throwing them at the nearby citizens, injuring most and scaring the rest away. With all this happening, one of the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 jumped over the crowd as they took off full speed for the school as it was only a few feet away. Izuku, these students will become great heroes in this new generation. The lives they will lead, the fists to calm the winds, the faces who light shines a ray of hope upon the defenseless. These are the symbolism of what people look for when they see a hero. What I see in the heroes before me. Throughout the crowd were heroes who survived the dastardliness battle who looked upon them. The wild pussycats sat together in their civilian outfits as they looked upon them. In the middle of them, the young Kota stood with his hands in his pocket and looking on to his favorite hero already. Outside, the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 ended up running into a line of cars as it rammed into them, sending them flying everywhere. As it roared, its appearance shook those that were nearby as the heroes who were outside to guard the gymnasium acted. Izuku, with that I want to say this to you all. He says as he pauses for a moment before grabbing a hold of the mic as he looked towards his students. Izuku, you all are the best students that I have ever taught and the best heroes this world has ever seen. All these people in this building who are sitting down and watching you were impacted by your brave feats, and if it wasn't for you all to have done that, I have no say in what they are here for. He says, as outside the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 had slammed one of the heroes into the ground before backslapping a hero away into the air. Sensing its target, the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 ran forth towards the gymnasium. Sitting down in his seat, Izuku suddenly felt his danger sense trigger as he sensed the impending danger that was coming behind the wall facing towards his teacher's back. Quickly he vanished from where he was seated as Izuku heard something crack behind him. Izuku, and I just want to say dash. Before he could finish, the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 punched through the wall as it roared. With everyone caught off guard, they weren't fast enough to react to 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 reaching for Izuku, but all except one did. Izuku, 1 for all 10%. Detroit. Running along the walls as fast as he could, leaving behind a trail of green static. He leapt off of the wall as he reeled his fist back, encased in his power as he neared the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿. Izuku, 𝐶𝐶𝐶. He shouted, punching the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 as it flew back into the hole it created. Standing there in his hero suit, he looked back to everyone in the gymnasium. Izuku, everyone listen up. Those in the hero course will suit up and come help outside to clear the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿. Those in the support course and general studies will help with evacuating the civilians. Please stay calm and listen to them. He shouts as he balls his fist and looks to them with determination as the sun shines brightly behind him. Izuku, we will protect you all. That is what heroes do. He says as his words fills those with encouragement as they all began moving. As they did, he turned around to see the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 he punched recovering from the blow. Izuku, now it's time to deal with you. He says, pulling down his cowl as he jumps from where he was standing as he dashed towards it. As the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 recovered, it looked towards him as it roared. Izuku, now what hole in the ground did you come out of? I thought we took care of all of you. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿, It screeched as it leapt towards him with its claws reeled back as it attempted to claw at his head. Seeing the attack coming, he dodged up under it as he slammed his leg into the creature's side as it winds out. Bringing his other leg forward, he slammed it on the side of its head as it slid back a few feet. Izuku, the first time I saw you I was afraid due to the fact that your strength equaled all might at the time. But now, you're nowhere near as strong as I am. You were nowhere near as strong as him. He says as he began to increase his power as it surged through his body at 10%. Izuku, For us to have a good graduation, you'll be the perfect send-off for the end of our year here. One for all, full cowling 10%. Unleashing his power, he kicked off the ground at high speeds as he dashed towards the 𝗏𝗡 and kicked it into the air. As he ran, he jumped into the air high above it as he twirled around and dove towards the 𝗏𝗡 as used the heel of his 𝗧𝗱 to drive his foot into the creature's abdomen. 𝗏𝗡. It hollered out as Izuku slammed the creature into the ground. As a large crater formed from the size of the beast. Izuku stared at the 𝗏𝗡 as he saw that it was inactive as it was in a restless state. Izuku, and I thought you were gonna put up a much difficult fight. He says, kicking the 𝗏𝗡's head as he stared at it. Suddenly, the 𝗏𝗡's eyes rolled from the back of its head as Izuku was surprised by it. Rearing its head up, it roared out to the clouds. 𝗏𝗡, RAH. Like a call, the sounds of more 𝗏𝗡s roaring behind him had caught him by surprise as he saw 7 𝗏𝗡s running towards him. Izuku, so you called for backup? He says, stepping off of the 𝗏𝗡 as his feet touched the ground. Siswish from his hands, Black W slowly began to slither out into the air beside him as his power arcs intensified as he increased the percentage in his power. Izuku, guess I'll take care of the rest of your friends while the others get ready. Kicking his foot into the ground, he faced the 𝗏𝗡s as they charged at him. Izuku, Bakugu's gonna be real upset that he couldn't do anything. He thought as he kicked off towards the 𝗏𝗡s at full speed. As he ran, he released smoke screen as he fogged up the area around him as it blocked the creature's view. Behind him, the smoke began to take form as the past users of One for All began to form from it. As the user, 9th, he has made his move. The first user of One for All said, referring to him as the 9th possessor of the quirk. Izuku, I know. That's why I am taking care of these 𝗏𝗡s first. He said as he jumped into the air to dodge a hand that had dug through the smoke cloud that was heading towards him. User, then you know he is coming. He tells him as he could feel the eyes of the other users of One for All over his shoulder as he looked ahead to see a pair of talons heading for him as he dodged beneath the attack as he slid along the ground on his knees. As he stood back up, he moved his arms forward as Black W stretched out and wrapped itself around the 𝗏𝗡, dragging it to the ground. Upon doing so, his danger sense alerted him from behind as he ducked down and allowed a fist to reach over his head, kicking his heel back into the leg of the 𝗏𝗡 behind him. The creature fell down to its knees before feeling the force of Izuku's kick slam its head into the ground. Once he did, he pulled on the strings of Black WP, bringing the 𝗏𝗡 back towards him as he jumped up and back kicked it away into the other 𝗏𝗡 as they both fell to the ground. Izuku, that's 4, so where's the last one? Woman. From behind him near the entrance, the last 𝗏𝗡, whose tone was more darker and bulkier than the others, held an innocent woman in the palm of its hand. Thinking on the situation carefully, he had to assess it without getting the woman hurt. RD user, be calm 9th. Think smart and be precise. He tells him as Izuku looks down towards a small rock at the bottom of his foot. Looking down at it, an idea formed in his head as he reached down and picked it up. Holding the rock in his hand, he began stomping his right foot into the ground, repeatedly confusing the 𝗏𝗡. In an instant, the rock vanished from his hand as it hit the exposed brain on the 𝗏𝗡's head. 𝗏𝗡, Ari! It screeched. Before the 𝗏𝗡 could squeeze the woman's head, she vanished from its clutches as the 𝗏𝗡 miraculously found itself in the air. Over its face, Izuku's hand clutches it as he slammed the creature down into the ground as he reeled his fist back. Izuku, 25% 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲. Slamming his fist down upon the creature's head, a gust of wind blew from the blow as the 𝗏𝗡 was shoved deeper into the ground. As the wind began to settle, Izuku stood up from the crater as the sounds of cheers and clapping caught his attention. Looking to his side, he saw the bystanders who were watching congratulate him, even the woman that he had saved. Izuku, you're welcome, he says with a smile as he waved at them as he flew out of the crater and landed on solid ground. Bakugu, Deku, what did I tell you about leaving pieces of CRP for me to fight? He shouted as he landed beside him and punched his head. Izuku, Kaken. Bakugu, don't Kaken me. I told you what would happen if you leave CRP for me to fend off. Mina, well, don't you look at that. He did it again. she shouted as he looked behind Bakugo to see the entirety of Class 3A and be running towards them in their hero suits. Kaminari, way to go Midoriya. I didn't even need to get suit up. Mina, yeah, you had this in the bag. Jiro, yeah man. Proud of you. She says, jabbing a small punch at his shoulder as everyone congratulated him. With those who were around to witness this scene, everyone cheered at the fact that they were now saved and could go back to the ceremony that was happening. If it was all that simple, someone said. The voice of this person sent shivers down their spines as everyone looked up above. 𝐻𝗧𝗟𝗓, he's here. From above, a dark figure slammed down into the ground, sending a gust of dirt and wind around. As everyone shielded their eyes from the wind, they removed their arms as to see who it was that had landed. Standing next to the Nomu was none other than Tamura Shigaraki, as he stared at the Nomu's defeated body. Shigaraki, to think that once before we put all of this work into making you the perfect being to kill these heroes. He say as he reached his hand around the Nomu's throat as he picked it up from the ground with his inhuman strength. Shigaraki, how wrong were we for that? He says as he activate his decay quirk as the Nomu was reduced to dust as it flew in the wind. Standing there, everyone couldn't even estimate their brains as they watched as the symbol of chaos and fear itself had presented himself once again in front of their eyes. Shigaraki, 𝐻𝗧𝗓𝗏, Midoriya? He chuckled out as he looked towards him with a heinous smile, kicking the rock that was by his foot away. He stared at the group of young soon-to-be heroes as he looked at all but one. Shigaraki, I have to say, that beating you left me last time, it left on a mark on me that I couldn't heal. And I have all but you to thank for that. So, which is why I am here, I want to thank you properly by giving you a proper graduation gift and birthday gift, birthday boy. He said as he held his hand in the air as he released a powerful radio blast into the air that sent off to a desolate location, deep hidden in the grounds where the giant Makia rested. A laboratory that housed the Nihai and Nomus was activated as the Nomus came to life. As they did, the ceiling above them opened as they roared to the sky as from their backs produced bat-like wings that spread out wide. As their wings flapped, the Nomus roared as they flew into the air towards the school. In the distance their screeches could be heard as they looked off into the distance to see them flapping their wings. Mineta, what are those things? Shigaraki, those. Heh, they are your ultimate nightmares. The new and improved better versions of what were meant to strike fear into the hero society of false heroes. He says as Izuku steps forward as he stomps his foot down into ground, creating a dark atmosphere as everyone was able to sense the dreadful feeling that was circling around already. Izuku, Shigaraki. I let you go off with a warning in hopes that you wouldn't show your face again after that battle. If you cross the line this time dash. Shigaraki, this time. That's what you were going to say, right? He asked as the screeches of the Nomus coming were getting closer as everyone were in fear of what was coming. Shigaraki, there is no line to be crossed. The line has already been crossed. It's been erased, destroyed, forgotten. He shouted as from above large and heavy figures landed on the ground behind him as thuds and booms of the feet of the creatures landing behind him placed fear into the hearts of those who were around to witness this. Shigaraki, you said that you spared me in our last battle for the idea that I wouldn't show my face again. But that wasn't it. You carry this ideology that everyone is the same and that you have shared a life that's similar to theirs because of how you were treated. How you were outcast because of your difference. He says as his hands began to cackle with power as all for one began to build up within his body like one for all. Behind him the Nihai Nomus had all landed with their wings retracted back into them. Shigaraki, that isn't the case this time. Not anymore. This time, we're going to end this once and for. The final send-off to a long battle that should have ended long ago. Izuku, for once I agree with you. He says, not knowing the hidden motive behind his meaning as within his mind, his 𝐻𝗧𝗓𝗏 sat smiling at his plan that was about to unfold. With both sides on the offensive, the match has been set as the chest pieces have been placed down. With his hand raised, the Nihai Nomus roared as within their dark sockets a glint of red shined as their feet dug into the ground. The heroes saw this as they readied themselves as well as others were clearing the yard of all innocent bystanders. A war was about to break, and this time only one side will have won this day. Shigaraki, 𝐻𝐻 attack. He commanded as the 𝗚𝐽𝐽𝐻 roared as they raced towards the heroes of the new generation as they stared at the incoming threat. Izuku, everyone, let's take down these villains once and for all. All right? With that they raced off towards the incoming threat as Izuku landed the first blow to 𝗚𝐽𝐽𝐻 at 30%. But with that blow the 𝗚𝐽𝐽𝐻 withstood it as it glared at him. Izuku, so this 𝗚𝐽𝐽𝐻 can withstand even 30% of one for all? He questioned as he dug his foot into the ground as the 𝗚𝐽𝐽𝐻's resistance was slowly inching away as it was being pushed back. Izuku, then let's crank it up to 50%. Raya. He shouted as he sent the 𝗚𝐽𝐽𝐻 flying back towards Shigaraki as he simply dodged it as he started walking towards him. Shigaraki, it was already known that you would attack them first. He states as Izuku glared at him as the rest went and fought the other 𝗚𝐽𝐽𝐻s around them one-on-one. Shigaraki, after all, your main fight is with me. Izuku, so stop talking and let's do this. Shigaraki. He shouted as he took off in a dash towards him as the ground cracked beneath his feet. Sensing his increase in power, Shigaraki smiled in glee as he kick-started off towards him, balancing himself out in power to match his own. Shigaraki, Kinetic Booster x10, Enhanced Physiology, Overmax Stamina x2, plus Airwalk. He combined the quirks as the two clashed with their power. Grabbing his arms, Izuku locked Shigaraki in a tight hold with his own strength as he smiled wickedly at his attempt to hold him. Shigaraki, is this all that you're going to do? Izuku, no. In order for you not to decay, we'll take this back to the sky. He said as he pushed off from the ground, blasting both of them into the air. Shigaraki, don't think this will end up the same as last time. He says, placing his feet on his chest as he pushed him away. Izuku, As he flew back in the air, he caught himself as he flew back towards him. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝗧𝗟, you're walking right into his trap, kid. The original possessor of Black WHP had said to him. Izuku, I know that. But I have to know exactly what he's planning to do. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝗧𝗟, that's the thing, kid. We know exactly what he's trying to do. It's to kill you and take one for all once and for all. Izuku, that hasn't stopped him from doing it 9 generations ago. And it won't stop with me. He declared as he flies even faster towards Shigaraki, who smiles as he receives a strong blow to his face as he was knocked backwards in the air. Shigaraki, what's wrong, Midoriya? Afraid to hit me harder than that? He questioned him as Izuku flew down in the air towards him as he shot a strand of black WHP around his waist as he pulled him up. Izuku, no. I'm not afraid. He says as he slams his fist across his jaw as he was sent flying back. As he was suddenly reeled back towards him as Izuku slams his fist into his gut, knocking the wind out of his lungs. Izuku, in fact, I'm just getting started. Shigaraki, then let's speed this up then. Raya. Releasing a strong wave of energy from his hand, Izuku was sent flying back in the air, receiving damage from the attack as a part of his suit was damaged. Remaining where he was, Shigaraki watched as Izuku recovered in midair from the attack as he stared down at him. Shigaraki, so, how am I supposed to do this? He asked. Sitting within his mind was all for one who was watching all of this unfold from within his mindscape. AFO, you will proceed as told. In order for you to link the two cores of one for all and all for one, you must make contact with his forehead and proceed to take it, allowing me access to the link of his power and fuse them. He told him as Shigaraki watched as Izuku was flying towards him. As he was looking at him, he suddenly vanished before his eyes. Shigaraki, looking around him in the air, he couldn't see him nor find him as he even tried using search to track him. But to no avail. Even with this power he couldn't find him. Shigaraki, where did you go, 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝗧𝗟? Suddenly from his side he felt a powerful blow against his side as he was sent flying in the air. As he recovered from the blow, he stopped himself in midair only to feel another blow to his side and then to his jaw as he was sent flying upward only to be met with a powerful fist to his face that was encased in energy. Izuku, second gear plus FA-gene 55%. He shouted as the side his face was badly wounded as he was sent flying down almost to the ground. Able to stop himself, he was just above one of his nomus who were fighting Aoyama only to suffer being slammed into the ground by the beast. Shigaraki. Izuku, Shigaraki. He shouted, flying down as he attempted to punch him but missed as his fist slammed into the ground, causing a small shake in the ground. As he stood up, he looked up to see that Shigaraki had flew back into the air as he flew after him. Bakugo, Raya. He roared as he slammed his hand down on the Nomu. He was on head as he released a powerful explosion that managed to push it back. As he stood back, Todoroki ended up standing behind him as he was able to push his Noma back as well. Todoroki, they're too strong. Bakugo, we just have to hit them even harder. He said to him as the two nodded as they attacked together at once. Using his ice, Todoroki froze both of the Nomus as Bakugo placed his hands together as a light formed in between their hands. Bakugo, Raya. 𝐻𝐿𝐴 freaks. He shouted as he shot mini versions of compressed explosions at the Nomus as they exploded upon contact. With them taking damage, the others began to see this as they started duo attacking the Nomus. Bakugo, it's working. Kirishima, ha. We can beat him. He shouted, slamming his fists together with 𝗧𝗬𝗧𝗟𝗘 as they took down a Nomu together before hardening to block a strike from another. Behind that Nomu, it found itself unable to move as its feet had sunken into the ground like it was mud. Around it was a speeding blur as a foot came sliding across its face as it was sent flying across the ground by the blur, whom was Ida. Ida, come on everyone. Teamwork is the best way to handle these Nomus. We must keep them at bay and defeat them to protect the civilians. All right / we know already, Cyclops. They all shouted except Bakugo, who said his own thing. While they were occupied, Eraserhead and Vlad King were skirting the civilians away from the battle. As they were one of the Nomus who had gotten knocked away from the group, looked up to see Eraserhead as it growled. Growing its wings, it soared over towards him with its mouth wide open. Zapping one of the Nomus, Kaminari saw the Nomu heading for his teacher. Kaminari, oh no. Mr. Aizawa. He shouted, getting everyone's attention as they looked over towards their teacher to see the Nomu bite down on his right leg. Oh, Mr. Aizawa. They shouted as the hero only looked down at pity for the creature. Aizawa, that's it? That's all you were going to do? He asks as he slowly raised his right leg as he lifted the Nomu up from the ground. Moving his hand up to his eye patch, he revealed his dilated eye that was injured in the last battle as he stared at the monster. Aizawa, thanks to the support course, I was able to get a new prosthetic leg made for me. In the event that I would ever need to fight again. He says as he jumps and brings his left leg over to the side of the Nomu's head. The creature was dazed from the swing as suddenly something wrapped around its throat as it was brought down to its knees as Vlad King came running over to it. Vlad King, leave it to me, Eraser. He told him as he shoved his hand into the skull of the creature as blood poured out from its head and hardened. Once it was, the Nomu fell to the ground as its head shattered to pieces. Vlad King, looks like we're going to have to join the fight. Aizawa, I guess you're right. Ms. Joke, Aizawa. Looking over to his left, he saw his wife with a concerned look on her face as she held his hand. Ms. Joke, please be careful. She told him as Aizawa stared at his wife before bringing her into a soft embrace as he let her go. Aizawa, I will. Let's go, Vlad. Vlad King, right? The two raced off as Ms. Joke stared at her husband as he went off to fight one last time before turning around to help the citizens escape. Shigaraki, Raya. Releasing a large radio wave explosion from his hand, he and Izuku were separated once again. Izuku's arm sleeves were damaged, and his cowl was torn off. Shigaraki on the other end had lost his cape and his upper shirt as he was slowly healing from his wounds. The two were huffing and puffing due to their recent exchanges of heavy blows. But out of both, Izuku was taking the most damage due to Shigaraki's regeneration quirk. Shigaraki, had enough yet? Izuku, I should be saying that to you. For the last few blows, you've been doing the same thing. Overusing your physical enhancements and blasting waves of sound at me must be taking a toll on your body. Shigaraki, so you caught on. He says as the two stay afloat in the air as they stare each other down. Izuku, what's your reason for doing all of this, Shigaraki? There's no point in fighting anymore, the war's over. Shigaraki, the war's over. Hey, you really think it was over? The war was only the starting point of it. The whole reason of the war was to show the world how useless and weak you heroes really are, and to show how blindly the world followed. Like a bunch of sheep following the line leader, whatever they do they're gonna do blindly. I am the black sheep. The opposite, the forgotten. He says as the clouds above them began to darken into a gray cloud as a chest piece was knocked down. Izuku, Shigaraki, you have nothing to lose by stopping this right now. Shigaraki, yes, Midoriya. That's where you're right. I have nothing to lose because I have 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. He shouted as Izuku was shocked by this outburst. Shigaraki, I have no family, I have no friends, I have no purpose in this world any longer than I should. With all that I don't even have a reason to continue on. Izuku, what are you saying, Shigaraki? He asked as a sickening smile grew upon his face as his right hand had begun to twitch. Shigaraki, haven't you figured it out yet with that big brain of yours? One of us isn't leaving this battle alive, and I intend on making it the both of us. He declared as Izuku was too late to react to him blitzing through the air as his hand had grabbed his face. Realizing what he was about to do, the only thing he could do was punch him repeatedly as Shigaraki laughed. Therefore, yes. One for all you will be mine to command. He shouted as red static bounced around Shigaraki as it traveled towards Izuku. As the energy sparked around his body, he began to feel immense pain throughout his body as he could nothing but scream in pain. Izuku, feeling his inside burn as if they were on fire, he could feel that something else was happening deep within him. Inside of his mind and spirit, the very core of One for All was beginning to shift from dark to red. With the negative influence of All for One and the positive influence of One for All. The core was becoming unstable as a force emitted from the core and outside of his body. Feeling this sudden pressure push upon the two, a bright light exploded from between them as they were both sent flying down to the ground. As Izuku was laid down in a crater formed from his crash. His power sparked amongst his body as if it was going haywire without control. His body was going through a tough battle of mental and physical pain, and it wasn't any better hearing the distorted voices of the past users of the quirk scrambling through his mind like a lost satellite signal going in and out. On the other side, Shigaraki was dazed inside of the crater formed around him. The power of All for One sparked around his body as he could feel his body shifting and changing due to losing control to his power. Underneath his skin he felt his flesh crawling as his mutation quirk was beginning to act up again, but deep inside his mind he was having a conversation with his 𝐴𝐻𝐵. Shigaraki, what happened? I thought you said that it was supposed to work. He questioned his 𝐴𝐻𝐵 as he sat in a chair made from the mental power of his own as he stared at the chest board in front of him. On the board was 1 black queen, 2 black knight pieces, and 10 black pawns. On the other side was 1 white queen, 3 white knight pieces, and 10 white pawns. Most of the black pawn pieces had been knocked down, representing the fallen nomus that had been beaten. Therefore, I see now. Shigaraki, see what? What do you see? He asked him as All for One looked at the white piece to see that its tone was shifting from white to black as if there was an interference. Therefore, the core of One for All is shifting due to the negative influence we planted inside of it. Our plan hasn't failed but is slowly getting weaker, so we can't waste any time. Shigaraki, so what do I have to do? He asked as he watched as his 𝐴𝐻𝐵 smiled as he looked at him. A simple answer really. We have to upset his heart. Cause him to fall into a deep sense of despair and anger. Poison the core of One for All like before and cause it to shift. He tells him as he awakens from the ground as he sat up from the dirt over him. As he did, he looked up to see that Izuku was being helped up by some of his classmates. Looking around, he noticed that some of the Nihai nomus had been defeated or were still fighting most of the heroes who were still up and fighting. Izuku, it's over, Shigaraki. He says to him as he looks back over to see him standing with help from Achiko as she held him up with his arm over her shoulder. Izuku, I don't know what you did just now, but you need to stop this. There's no need to continue. Shigaraki, you keep saying that and I keep telling you there is. He responds, standing up from the ground with a bit of frustration due to the pain he was feeling. Shigaraki, I told you, Midoriya, there would be death among us. Only one victor will be alive and both of us won't be here to see it. And it seems to me that you're not taking me seriously. So, I think there should be a little change to make you understand what I mean. He says, looking more seriously as he glared at Izuku, who realized what he meant as Izuku stuck his arm out in front of her in a protective manner. Izuku, you will not lay a finger on her, Shigaraki. Shigaraki, haha. He laughed as his sense of demeanor changed, as his intentions weren't even focused on her as the person, he was intentionally speaking about someone who had appeared. Shigaraki, you mistaken me for the wrong thing, Midoriya. I wasn't talking about her. I meant her. Eri, big brother. Over to the side, Eri had shouted towards him as she stood by the fountain on the school grounds as she saw him injured. Realizing that he was talking about her, Izuku's eyes widened as he and Eraserhead looked towards Shigaraki to see he had placed his foot outside of the crater he stood in. As if time had slowed down, Shigaraki had dashed from where he was, so did Izuku, as he was only a foot behind him. With his arms stretched out towards him, he summoned Black WHP to grab him as he tried reaching for him. Eraserhead wanted to use his quirk to try and hold Shigaraki off, but one of the Nomus that he was fighting managed to grab his head as they slammed him into the ground. With Eri staring in front of her, her vision was consumed by Shigaraki's hand reaching for her face as she swallowed her drought. Quickly she stuck her hand out to his bare chest as she used her quirk. From his chest, a faint yellow glow illuminated from beneath her hand as she was scooped up from the ground by Shigaraki grabbing her face and lifting her up from the ground. Before everyone's eyes, they watched as Shigaraki used his quirk to decay her body. While her horn glowed a white hue as her hand traveled from his chest to his face, Shigaraki felt a chilling sensation travel down his body as he watched as the little girl began to cry. Looking towards her older brother figure, who slowly began to cry as he failed to reach Shigaraki. She mouthed out her final words as he was able to understand her. "I love you, big brother," she says as her final words as she was reduced to ashes. Crashing to the ground, Izuku rolled painfully across the ground as he slammed into the water fountain. "Izuku, no!" He screamed out painfully in agony and sorrow as he couldn't believe he had just lost the little girl he saved long ago. The little girl he called a little sister. Shigaraki, haha. He laughed mockingly as everyone looked on in horror at what had just happened. Shigaraki, don't you see, Midoriya? All this death, all this destruction, all because of your stupidity and gullibility. He says as the clouds above began to darken as the ground had began to tremble. Sitting up from the ground as his power began to spike around his body crazily. Izuku looked up from the ground as his eyes were engulfed by his power as the ground cracked beneath his hands. "Izuku, Shigaraki." He growled as he stood up as his gloves around his arms and hands were shredded apart as half of his suit had torn off due to the crash. "Izuku, you will pay. You will pay for killing Eri." He shouted, releasing a strong burst of his power as it flickered in the air. Due to the pressure of his power, the atmosphere began to affect the weather as the clouds formed together into rain clouds as light rain began to pour down. Looking down at Shigaraki, Izuku roared as he dashed towards him and flew with him into the air. "Izuku, Izuku!" She screamed out for him as they all watched as they took off away from the school. In the air, Izuku was choking the life out of Shigaraki as he was having a hard time releasing his grip from around his throat. "Izuku, I won't give you a second chance. I'm done giving you chances. Shigaraki, I never needed second chances from the likes of you," he declared, punching his side with his enhanced strength as Izuku took the blow as he coughed out blood. But the punch was little to harming to him as he continued flying in the air as he saw a building up ahead. "Izuku, let's see how you feel after you're crushed on the side of a building," he shouted as he raised him up and slammed him through the side of the building as they went through building after building. With the civilians looking up into the air, they were met with fallen debris as they ran out of the way in fear of being crushed. Driving cars had to stop as fallen debris fell onto the road and had to drive away only to crash into one another as smaller debris fell on top of the vehicles. On the side of the building, Izuku had Shigaraki indented into the outside wall as he punched his head deeper. "Izuku, you bstrd. You killed Eri." He shouted, punching him again as he reeled his fist back as the wind whistled as he brought his fist forward. Izuku, you killed a little girl, my sister. Shigaraki, screw off. Izuku, F you. Slamming his fist across his face, half of the building was blown within the infrastructure as most fell to the ground. As Shigaraki was thrown inside of the building, he quickly caught his ground as he slid on the floor. Throwing his hand to the ground, he was about to use decay to destroy the entire building with people still inside trying to escape, but before he could, Black W wrapped around his hand, lifting him up as Izuku slammed his fist into his chest as he was thrown outside of the building. Shigaraki, teach. Izuku, I'm not done. He shouted, kicking himself out of the building as he double-kicked Shigaraki with the bottom of his soles as he felt as if his spine was about to blow out from his back. Sending him into the side of another building, Black WP unwrapped itself from around his waist as he fell to the ground. In a crater on the street filled with innocent people, they all turned to look at him as they pulled out their phones, taking pictures and recording the beaten villain. Looking up at them, he growled as his fingers twitched. Shigaraki, you want to take some pictures? Fine. I'll give you something to be amused by. 𝐴𝐮𝐻𝐽𝐻. He shouted, using decay to the fullest as Izuku was too late to react. Izuku, no. Looking down at the ground as he was still afloat in the air. He watched as the entire district became a large hole of destruction and ashes due to Shigaraki's decay. Hearing the screams of the innocent people who all died to his hands fueled Izuku's rage as he spotted Shigaraki in the middle of the very large crater formed by his power. Looking behind him, he saw the destroyed statue of All Might as he looked back at Izuku. Shigaraki, like what I did with the place. It fits my style. He says, jabbing a thumb to the statue behind him as he grinned at Izuku. Izuku, RH. Infuriated by this, he dove down through the air towards him as he shot compressed air shots with his fingers at Shigaraki as they hit the ground, causing dust and dirt to cloud over him. As Izuku got close, he was suddenly stabbed in his arms and legs as he was held back in the air. Izuku. He coughed out BLD as he looked ahead of him to see Shigaraki with black ricochet tendrils encoded in red stabbing through his limbs as his BLD fell to the ground. Shigaraki? Heh, you got so mad about the death of a little girl that you forgot all about yourself. How you are supposed to defeat me when you're not even fighting with a clear mind. He stated as he started to imbue decay and power into the tendrils as they traveled towards Izuku, causing pain for his body as he began to spaz out. Feeling this sudden rush of heat spike through his body as he couldn't help but scream in pain. Shigaraki's laughter echoed over his screams as Izuku could do anything to break out. 𝐻𝗔𝐻𝐿, 9th, be strong. You must break free, relinquish your anger should it affect your power. 𝐻𝗔𝐻𝐿, be calm. Listen to your senses. They said to him as Izuku was able to fight through the pain. As he was, a sudden feeling began to burn through his throat as he felt it rising. From the base of his throat, a bright orange hue began to glow as Shigaraki saw this. Shigaraki, what's this? He questioned. As Izuku reared his head back, he threw his head forward as a gust of fire came bursting out from his mouth. In shock, Shigaraki held his arm over his face as the flames engulfed his body as it burned through his skin. Unable to hold him with his tendrils, he retracted them as he had to focus on healing as the flames died down. Izuku. As small flames seeped from his mouth, Izuku stood as he looked at his hands, astounded by what he had just done as he felt the base of his throat warm up. Suddenly, as if he felt the need to release what was in his mouth, he released a torrent of flames from his mouth as they burned the air before closing his mouth to control it. Izuku, how is this possible? He asked as he looked back to see that Shigaraki had smashed his hand into the ground, sending debris flying towards him. Instinctively, he raised his hands to block as he powered one for all, only to feel some sort of magnetic pull from his hands as the objects that were sent at him flew around him before being thrown back at Shigaraki as he had to use a wave of energy to shatter the debris. Staring at his hands, Izuku was left even more astounded as he couldn't believe the two powers he now wielded. Izuku, I can't believe it. I just used my mom's and dad's quirk for the first time. 𝐻𝗔𝐻𝐿, congrats kid. Those are some pretty cool quirks you got there. 𝐻𝗔𝐻𝐿, I wonder if it has something to do with my and my brother's temperance. He pondered as Izuku looked in front of him to see that half of Shigaraki's flesh was scarred as his other half was healed. Shigaraki. At this point, I've had it with trying to take it easy on you and taking my time. He says as blue flames begin to dance around his hands as he glared at Izuku. Shigaraki, we're now in the endgame's Midoriya. Only one will remain. Raya. He roared, shooting blue cremation flames from his hands as they roared towards him. Jumping out of the way of the flames, Izuku kicked off from the ground as he flew around Shigaraki. Shigaraki, don't think you're going to escape me from up there. He shouted as he raised his hand and began shooting laser beams from his palm at Izuku as he dodged them in midair. With the help of danger sense, he was able to detect when one was going to get near him. As he was doing so, Shigaraki was getting infuriated as he moved both of his hands to face the sky as he blasted more beams even faster than before as Izuku had to fly to the ground as they were getting too close. Running along the ground, he got closer towards Shigaraki as he inhaled air into his lungs as his throat began to glow an orange hue. Releasing the flames from his lungs, they raced towards Shigaraki as he took the flames head-on. As Izuku got closer, he was too late to see two white eyes peer through the flames as a giant hand took him by his chest as he was slammed into the ground. Izuku, Shigaraki, ha! He laughed, appearing over him as the giant hand was of his mutation quirk as hands stacked on top of hands held him to the ground as a small crater the size of his body had formed. Shigaraki, you had me surprised with your little gifts earlier. The ability to breathe fire like a dragon and the ability to magnetically pull and redirect objects as they come and go. So sad that you couldn't do more with it. He boasted as Izuku pried his hands off of him as he was pushed back into the ground as he watched as he continued to hold him down. Izuku, you can boast all you want to. Nothing's going to stop me from taking you down for what you did to her. Shigaraki, seriously, you're still on the fact that I killed her. If you think about it, even if you do manage to defeat me and move on with your life, that little girl will have become nothing more than a distant memory for you to have. You won't be able to bring her back, so by forcing yourself to fight me just because of her death is meaningless and wasteful. It's sad and you're going to die knowing that you couldn't do nothing to avenge her death. He told him as realization had hit him, but his emotions wouldn't let him acknowledge that some part of what he was saying was right. Even though Aries dead, she's now reduced to being just a memory in his head. There was nothing that he could do except fight on for her sake so that her death wouldn't have been just for nothing. Izuku, even though she's gone, she was still someone important to me, just as the League was to you. He said as Shigaraki looked at him shockingly as he felt his mutated arm began to shake as he looked down to see that Izuku was being encased in some sort of green aura as he was lifting him off of him. Izuku, you can sit here and say what you want to say to lower my attitude and to make me give up. But I won't ever forgive you for taking the lives of so many innocent people who have done nothing but lived their lives. Shigaraki, you keep talking by innocent lives, what about mines? What about the League's? We all deserve to live our lives. It was all just because of your little government's rules that we were outcast and pushed away by the world's influences and thoughts. He shouted as miraculously he was pushed away as he flew back in the air as he stared at Izuku. Shigaraki, we just wanted to live. What was so wrong with that? He shouted as he slammed into the ground as he pushed himself back up to his feet only to shield himself with his arms as Izuku slammed his fist against him. Shigaraki, is it wrong for someone like me to live a good life and not be dictated by the minds of others? Izuku, in another lifetime, Shigaraki. You've done too much to be able to live freely now. Even if I do allow you to live after we fight, you would be given a death sentence and not even a chance to voice out your own actions. Shigaraki, then there was no reason for us to continue this conversation. He states as he pushes him away as he watched as they were only a few feet away. With the rain pouring down on them from above, they could only stare each other down as they allowed their powers to flow through them. The final showdown was happening and there was only going to be one victor. Shigaraki, Midoriya. You're still able to talk to my grandmother, right? Izuku, yes. Shigaraki, I want you to tell her that I will be seeing her real soon. He said as from Izuku's point of view Nana Shimura was standing behind him with her ghostly hand on his shoulder. Looking up, she nodded at Izuku as he knew what he was going to have to do. Izuku, she knows. Shigaraki, good. Then let's end this. He says to him as he clasps his hands together as purple and red static began to bounce around his hand as a bright light glowed between his hands. As the sound of wind being pushed away and rain falling everywhere echoed around us, he pulled his hands apart to reveal a ball of pink light forming within his hands as it was starting to grow bigger. Holding the ball above him in his hands, he began to fly in the air as the ball was getting larger and larger. From you. Everyone was able to see the large ball of energy shine behind them as they looked over towards the destroyed city of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 to see it. With all of the nomas taken down due to their group efforts, they could only sit back as they watched for what was about to unfold. Achiko, Izuku, please be okay. She thought to herself, wiping blood from her mouth as she held her stomach. Standing beside her were Bakugo and Ida as the rest of their classmates walked up behind them as they watched from afar at the event that was about to unfold. From below, Izuku watched as the ball of destructive energy in his hands grew. The air began to grow colder and thin as it was hard to breathe. The ground itself was beginning to crack and decay due to the growing energy radiating from it. Shigaraki, this is the Izuku Midoriya. He shouted as he poured more energy into ball as Izuku sensed the shift in its power. Getting in a stance where he transferred all the power of one for all throughout his body, he pushed it past 100%. Izuku, past users of one for all. I ask that you lend me your strength for this final battle. I know that I might end up being the last possessor of this great power, but I need to be at my strongest to protect everyone. So please lend me your strength. He asked as he felt the links of the other users of one for all link within him as he felt it grow stronger quickly. WhatIf users, you have always had us with you, Izuku Midoriya. You may use our strength to finally end all for one and to put an end to this threat once and for all. They told him as he felt black WHP wrap around his forearm and hands like a protective gauntlet as he floated off of the ground. Around his body a powerful green aura surrounded his body as his body flickered with power. Rising in the air he looked up towards Shigaraki as he was imbued in a white glow of energy that flowed around him. Izuku, you're right, Shigaraki. He said as he held his hands out as he focused on the palm of his hand. Focusing white energy began to form in the shape of an energy ball as his eyes began to glow. Izuku, this is the end. The end of all for one and one for all. To change this into something new. One for all 1,000,000%. Shigaraki, R8. He screamed infuriated as he unleashed the ball by sending it down towards Izuku. Izuku, throwing his hands forward, the energy in his hands blasted the ball as he was able to slow down its descent before crashing into his hands. Izuku, I must keep it airborne. He says as he began pushing it back as the large ball of energy was heading towards Shigaraki. As he saw this, he quickly threw his hands up as he pushed back against it. With this force being applied to it from both sides, excess energy was thrown off from it as it sent lashes of waves against the surrounding area, destroying the land in an instant. From afar the heroes could feel the waves travel through the air towards them, shielding themselves from the powerful gust of wind that came their way. All but one could only stare at the jaw-dropping power of two human beings who were the successors of this world's greatest hero and destroyer. Achiko, please win. Izuku, he screamed, pushing back with all of his might as Shigaraki laughed as he pushed back with even greater strength. Shigaraki, you struggling down there, Midoriya? He taunted, holding up his hand as a hole appeared in the palm of his hand as he held it out towards Izuku. Shigaraki, air cannon plus compression. He combined the two quirks as he released a powerful compressed air bullet towards Izuku as it took off the chip of his suit's shoulder. Beneath that torn piece of suit, half of his shoulder was gone as blood escaped from his wound. Izuku, Shigaraki, haha. He laughed, shooting more and more compressed air bullets at him as he was losing parts of himself that were drastically painful and reducing his strength. Shigaraki, how does it feel, Midoriya? To be shredded to pieces while still fighting the good fight. I bet good ol' one for all isn't too much of a help since you're pushing your body beyond its limits to keep that power going. He shouted as he applied more force onto the destructive ball as Izuku was pushed back. Izuku, 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐽. He grunted as he pushed back as they held it back at a standstill. Izuku, I can't keep this up. I lost half of my arms and a huge part of my leg. Even with this increase in power, I can still feel pieces of myself decaying due to this ball of destructive power in my hand. Pushing back against it with all of his might. Shigaraki noticed it as he was starting to get pushed back. Izuku, I have to end this now, 𝐻𝐻𝐸, and we will help you do so. He says as behind him they spiritual manifestations appeared as they laid their hands upon his, giving him even more strength than before. Feeling this rush of power, Izuku began to apply it to the hall in his hands as he was starting to gain the higher advantage as they were being pushed into the air. Confused by this sudden change in momentum, Shigaraki looked down towards Izuku as he noticed the sudden change in power. Shigaraki, 𝐻𝐻𝐸, how is he doing this? It's impossible. I took out most of his strength. He thought as he noticed the faint auras of the other users of One for All revolving around him. With just a look at his eyes, he noticed that something had changed. His irises had changed from an emerald green shade to a clear gray whitish shade as faint traces of light shimmered in his eyes. Shigaraki, those BSRDs are boosting his strength. I can't keep this up. He grunted as they were being pushed towards the clouds as they were so high in the sky that he could see the entire countryside from above. Ting feeling a strange feeling building up in his chest. He looked down to see that his chest was glowing as a single handprint was left there, with it being the source of the light. Staring at his chest in confusion, he realized that this was the work of Eri. With her last act before death being her placing her hand on his chest and used her ability to rewind and destroy all of the quirks that were within his body. Shigaraki, DMN that dead little brat. He shouted in anger as he started to feel the effects of the quirks being destroyed inside of him. Coughing up BLD, he felt himself slowly lose strength as the ball of destructive energy upon his hands was starting to take effect on him as his legs and hands were starting to decay. Shigaraki, 𝐻𝐻𝐸, what should I do now? He asked him as he tried calling out to him, only to feel his smile as the man himself slowly began go disappear. Defo, the one thing you can do, he said as Shigaraki suddenly felt a hole in his head as he suddenly began to feel cold. With the last thing he heard before fully decaying as the ball began to glow brightly, was the whispering voice of his own. Defo, you die. He told him as he fully became nothing but small particles of dark red light as he was absorbed into the hall of destructive energy. Izuku, 𝐻𝐻𝐸. With a final push, Izuku pushed the ball of energy into the sky as it got far away from him before exploding into a huge ball of purple flames. From below, the entirety of Japan saw this explosion as it blew away the clouds and the rain. Staying afloat, Izuku watched as the fire was starting to head his way as he assumed that it was going to just dissipate, but he was wrong. Izuku, 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐸. From the flames, a spiritual manifestation of a demon emerged as it latched onto Izuku as it sent him spiraling in the air. Izuku, what the dash? One for all. You will be mine to gain. The demon shouted as it forced open Izuku's mouth before transforming itself into dark mist as it traveled down his throat. Izuku, 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐸. He gagged as the mist began to clog up his throat as it caused the inside of his body to decay and burn as it traveled all the way into the realm of One for All. With the last users seeing this demon, they could do nothing as it sent a swirl of black smoke around that killed them in order from the last to the first. Staring at the demon, the first user of One for All stuck out his hand as he used the force of the power to bring the demon to his hand as he held it in his grasp. St user, this is not yet over, dear brother. If I have to go, you will join me as it has always been our fight. Devo, then let it be as it may. Little brother. They both said as they were killed and reduced to small particles of light. With One for All truly being gone, he fell all the way to the ground as a large explosion erupted, destroying the rest of the foundation of Kamino and reaching to other parts of the surrounding city. Before it could reach you, the school's defense system activated as a barrier protected them from the explosion. As the wind slowly began to die down, they all looked ahead of them to see nothing but destruction that laid ahead of them. Quickly, with their minds set on a certain someone. They left the school's premises as they went out throughout the destroyed city to find Izuku Midoriya, helping all of those that they found either injured or was too in pain to move their body. They looked amongst the destruction of endless chaos caused by Shigaraki as they called out for Izuku's name. Kaminari, Izuku. Mina, Izuku. Mineta, Izuku. Momo, Izuku. Tokoyami, Midoriya. Kirishima, Midoriya. Shout back out to us, man. They all called his name in worry as they were searching around for him, rummaging through debris as she used her quirk to allow them to float. 𝐻𝐿 came across a large crater that used to be 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's town square, as in the middle was someone with green hair. Someone she knew all too well. 𝐻𝐿, Izuku. She shouted, running down towards him as she slid across the ground over towards his body. As she did, the rest of the class as well as others came as they stood around the large crater, as what it was to be was something special, but now it was reduced to ruins. 𝐻𝐿, Izuku. Izuku. Hey, please wake up. She called out to him as she held his head in her lap and caressed the side of his face with her hands as tears fell from her eyes. Coming over to his other side, Bakugo knelt down to one knee as he held his other hand. Bakugo, come on, you nerd. Wake the hell up. The world still needs you, he said to him as the two stood over waiting for him to wake up. Slowly his eyes began to open as his vision was beginning to adjust to the view as he looked ahead of him to see the two people who were standing over his body. Izuku, 𝐻𝐿. Kaken. 𝐻𝐿, Izuku. She cried out as she hugged him tightly in relief that he was okay. But due to her doing this, Izuku had begun to cough violently as ashes flew out of his mouth. Sitting back, the two realized that he was actually in a dangerous condition. His entire left arm was completely gone, as well as his entire right leg up to his thigh. His right arm was missing a shoulder and pieces of his forearm that looked like bullets were sent through his flesh. His skin was pale and slowly losing blood as it was oozing out from an open wound on his back from a cement plate that pierced through him. 𝐻𝐿, someone help him. Please. Izuku, no, cough. Cough, there isn't much time for me left. Bakugo, don't you dare say that. He told him, staring him in his gray eyes as he grabbed his hand and held on to him tightly. Bakugo, I'm sure someone has some kind of healing quirk to heal you. I know they can, especially with the help of old lady recovery girl. He says, holding tears back in his eyes as he stared at his weakened friend who only forced a smile on his face. Bakugo, if only Eri hadn't died. Izuku, it's okay. There's no one here who could fix me in this state. Not even Eri. If she could, she'd be forcing herself through immense pain just to do it, and it would have pained me as much as her to see her try. He said as he looked back towards 𝐻𝐿, who was having a hard time trying to hold back her tears. 𝐻𝐿, if only this hadn't happened. We didn't even get the chance to walk across the stage yet. We didn't even get the chance to celebrate your birthday yet, she said as she held his hand close as her eyes were welding with tears at the thought of what she was about to say next as she held his hand upon her stomach as everyone looked at her shockingly. 𝐻𝐿, I hadn't even had the chance to tell you who we were going to be expecting for yet. We were supposed to be having a baby together, she told him as sad faces fell upon everyone at the thought of an unborn child who wasn't even going to be able to see their own father. Izuku, it's okay, I knew. 𝐻𝐿, what? She asked, shocked that he had already knew as she felt him caress her stomach as he smiled. Izuku, that night when you were in my dorm, and you stayed up because you felt something wrong was in your stomach. We thought it was because you ate a lot that day, but really it was because you were showing signs of 𝗧𝗓𝐦𝐻𝐿. I even saw the 𝗧𝗓𝐻𝐿 test you took when I took out the trash in your room. He told her as she began to cry even more as he started coughing violently as his entire bottom half had been decayed as it was starting to move even faster than before. Izuku, you guys, I want you all to know this. Don't let this day be a reminder of what it could have been or what it could have meant. Let it be the day of what has happened and what this day will forever represent. The day the battle between good versus evil finally ended, he said as he held up his right hand that was being held by Bakugo as he looked at him. Izuku, take care of them for me. Watch over them as if they were me that you were fighting to protect. Bakugo, I will. You DMN nerd. he said, croaking through his final joke as a tear fell from his eye. Nodding, he turned his head back towards Ochako as he brought his hand up to her face as he pulled her down and pressed his forehead against hers. Izuku, Ochako, I will always and forever love you for what kind of person you are and what you meant to me. Protect our children, let them grow up a better life than mine, teach them between right and wrong, and never let them fall too far off into the darkness of despair and anger. He said to her as Ochako cried as she nodded her head. Ochako, I will make sure they had a great dad who cared for them always. She told him as Izuku smiled. Looking at his peaceful smile, Ochako kissed him for the last time, subsiding the blood leaving his mouth nor the ash that was rising from decaying him from the inside. This was her last time seeing the one man who meant the world to her, and she wasn't going to be able to feel nor see that ever again. Ochako, I love you. Izuku, I love you too, he said as she let go of his head as he laid back down on the ground. Looking towards the clouds, he watched as the stars were starting to get brighter as his body was reduced to small light particles that glowed an emerald green light. As everyone watched as his life faded before them, Ochako broke down as her friends came to comfort her as the males of his class held their heads down in the loss of a great friend. One who cherished all life like it was the same. One who saw the true meaning of happiness and made it his dream to share with the rest of the world with a big smile on his face. Coast City Hospital, July 15th, 9:30 in the hospital of Coast City, a appealing woman laid in a hospital bed as she was expected give birth to her baby boy on this day. This woman had appealing skin and long green hair with teal blue eyes. In the room with her were 3 doctors, one by her side checking the monitor for the baby to come out of the WMB, one below her waiting between her legs for the baby to be pushed out, and another who was waiting with the tools to cut the umbilical cord. Doctor? All right, Mrs. Utsukushi. The baby is ready to be pushed out. We're gonna need you to give all that you got, all right, he told the woman known as Hozeki Utsukushi as she nodded her head as she was going through immense pain because of her contraptions. Hozeki. Doctor? All right, here we go. You're going to push on 1, 2, Hozeki, H. She screamed as she began pushing with all her might as the baby was slowly beginning to leave out of her WMB. With the doctor stationed between her leg, they saw the head of the baby coming out of the WMB. Doctor, I see a head. Come on, Mrs. Utsukushi. One more push. Hozeki, she screamed, inhaling between breaths as she pushed once more as the baby's full head was coming out. As the doctor saw this, she safely grabbed the baby's head with a soft amount of pressure to hold it up as the rest of its body was coming out. Hozeki, she screamed as outside the storm thundered as a struck of lightning struck behind her in a green flash as the baby was safely pushed out. Doctor, whoa, crazy storm we got here. Doctor, no kidding. Mrs. Utsukushi, you have a healthy baby boy, she says, holding up the baby as the other doctor came over to cut the umbilical cord. Wait, am I late? Shouted a black-haired man wearing an army uniform as he walked inside of the room with his bag being dropped by the floor of the door and taking off his hat. Doctor, no, Mr. Blake. You're just on time for cutting the umbilical cord, he told him as he washed his hands as they gave him a pair of gloves after drying his hands off. Grabbing the pair of scissors, he cut the umbilical cord. After cutting the cord, the doctors grabbed it as he took off the gloves. He held the baby in his hands. Looking at the baby, he saw how the baby was starting to calm down while it was in his arms as he held the baby close to his chest. Liam, hey little man. I know you can't understand me yet, but your daddy made it just in time, he said, walking over towards the Hozeki who was lying down on the bed as she looked up towards her husband with the baby in his hands. Hozeki, what happened? I thought you were going to be here earlier. Liam, I know. The boat had got delayed yesterday due to it stopping to pick up some important shipment. So, I had to wait early this morning for it to come, and when it finally came, I ran halfway across the city over the rooftops to get here. Hozeki, oh really? Liam, yeah, and I think this little guy would like to see his mama, he says, carefully handing the baby over towards her as she held him in her hands. Cradling the baby in her arms, she looked at the baby with happy eyes as she smiled. Hozeki, hee, hey my little Izuku. Liam, Izuku. I thought we were going to call him Liam Jr. 𝐻𝐮𝐽𝐻, Liam Jr. We came to an agreement and said that we were going to call him Izuku after my grandfather. Liam, really after your grandfather? 𝐻𝐮𝐽𝐻, what's wrong with that? We talked about this. Liam, fine then, I have an idea. He says as he sits next to her on the bed as he wraps his arm behind her shoulders as she lays up on him. 𝐻𝐮𝐽𝐻, what is it? Liam, how about we name him Izuku Midoriya Tsukushi? He says as 𝐻𝐮𝐽𝐻 looked surprised at him. 𝐻𝐮𝐽𝐻, why Midoriya? Liam, that should be obvious. He says, bringing his hand up to rub his small tuft of green hair that was very identical to his mother's. Liam, I read somewhere that in Japanese the color green means Midoriya. And I've been thinking about that for a while. If our son was going to have green hair like you, then part of his last name would be Midoriya. If he had all black hair, then his last name was going to be Blake. He said to her as she smiled at the thought of their child's name as she looked back at the baby boy in her arms. 𝐻𝐮𝐽𝐻, then I guess that's your name. Welcome to this world, Izuku Liam Midoriya Tsukushi, my wonderful baby boy. She says with a smile as the baby slowly began to open his eyes as they were revealed to be an appealing emerald green shade. The child of rebirth who would grow to become the strongest this world has ever seen. The ones who fist shall strike against fate and chaos. The ones who light shall shine a path for other heroes to follow and learn the true meaning of happiness. Gotham City, July 4th, 12 o'clock EDT. It was in the day of Gotham City where everyone was out the most. In Gotham Park, people were enjoying themselves as they tossed around a frisbee to one another and walked around the park with friends. In a secluded part of the park, a father of two was grilling barbecue patties and hot dogs. While he is grilling, the sudden sound of a beam being shot echoed behind them as they looked behind them to see that a hill of ice grew from the ground. Walking up this hill was none other than Mr. Freeze as he was shooting innocent people with his ice ray. Mr. Freeze, enjoying family time? He asked, looking at the small family of three as he began charging up his ice ray as he blasted it at them, freezing them alive and the cold barbecue that was cooking. Mr. Freeze, my family has other plans. He says as he slides down the hill of ice encasing the family as he looks out to see that others were running away. Charging up his ice ray again, he was prepared to fire it at them before out of nowhere a birdarang came soaring through the air as it hit his ice ray, causing him to lose balance. Regaining his balance with the large weapon in his hands, he realized whom that it was that attacked him surprisingly. Mr. Freeze, Batman. I was wondering when. Ha! Someone laughed out as he looked around for his attack only to be kicked down on top of his helmet by a boy who jumped away and landed on the ground in front of him. This boy was none other than the Boy Wonder himself, Robin. Reaching for his belt, he pulled out 2 discs as he threw them at his helmet, causing it to crack as Mr. Freeze growled in anger. Mr. Freeze, oh Boy Wonder. The Bat sent you to send me off to prison. Frankly, I'm quite whelmed. He said, standing up as he prepared his ice ray to fire at Robin. Robin, great, but I'm kinda in a hurry here. Mr. Freeze, kids. Always in such a rush. He says disappointedly as he aims his gun at Robin as he had an uninterested look. Robin, not talking to you. He tells him as Freeze realizes what he was saying as he looked behind him to see Batman gliding through the air towards him. As he got close, he reeled back his fist as he sent it pummeling Mr. Freeze to the ground. Star City, July 4th, 9:01 Pacific Daylight Time. In the brightful day of Star City, multiple cars were crossing over the bridge as a boat was traveling up under it. With no worry at all, someone jumps down from the air as they slammed their hands down to the road, causing ice to rise. This was all caused by a boy who had blue skin and spiky white hair. Ah! He laughed, causing mayhem as cars were sent flying over the ice as they crashed on the bridge. As the boy continued laughing, arrows were shot upon the ice that he had created as they began beeping. Alerted by this, the boy was too late to react as they exploded one by one as the ice was destroyed and the boy was knocked back. Looking to where the arrows had came from, he saw on top of the bridge that the arrows were shot by none other than Green Arrow and Speedy as they readied another arrow to shoot. Finally, I was wondering what a guy had to do to get a little attention around here. He says, forming ice over his hands as giant shards of ice were created as he sent them flying towards the 2 archers. Speedy, Juniors doing this for attention. He questioned as they fired their arrows at the shards of ice to destroy them but had to evade the incoming shards that they missed that began to freeze up most of the bridge. As they slid down the rails towards the lower part of the bridge, they shot their arrows at the boy. "Speedy, this better not interfere," he said disappointedly. Down on the bridge the boy raised his arms over him as ice rose from the ground to shield him from their arrows, but as 2 arrows landed on the center of the ice, they exploded, creating a hole in his shield. Seeing this, the boy shot more shards of ice towards Speedy as he jumped over them and shot a glove arrow at him as it landed on the side of his face, knocking him out. As Speedy landed on the bridge, he looked over towards the boy to see Green Arrow crouched in front of him. Green Arrow, the kid had a glass jaw. Speedy, hilarious. Can we go? Today is the day. Pearl Harbor, July 4th, 6:02 Hawaii Standard Time. Over the seas of the Pacific, ice floated over the ocean's waters as boats and ships were encased in ice. On 2 ships that were frozen over the water, the sounds of zapping and blasting echoed over the ships. On them, the freezing Ice Queen, Killer Frost, blasted beams of ice at her 2 offenders. Attacking her were Aquaman and 𝐻𝗒𝐿, as they jumped down from atop of the ship as they ran across the floor of the ship's deck. Maneuvering around on the ice, Aquaman had ran forward as he was going to attack Killer Frost, but he ended up being blasted by her ice as he was frozen from the foot up to his neck. Seeing this happen, 𝐻𝗒𝐿 jumped over his mentor as he ran forward. "Aquaman, don't tell me you're not excited," he said to his protege as he broke free from the ice's hold as he ran up behind 𝐻𝗒𝐿. "𝐻𝗒𝐿, right now, my king, I'm more focused on the matter at hand," he said as they were getting closer towards Killer Frost as she started blasting in close range as they couldn't run out far anymore. In the face of her blast, 𝐻𝗒𝐿 pulled out his water bearers as he used them to draw water out from behind as he created his water maces. Seeing him about to attack Killer Frost, blasted at his maces as they froze. Seeing this, 𝐻𝗒𝐿 used this to his advantage as he brought up the momentum from his swing as he landed on the floor as he brought the frozen maces crashing up beneath her chin, knocking her out. As he stood over her, he placed his bearers back into his holder as he looked behind him to see Aquaman with a smile on his face. "Aquaman, well?" he asked as 𝐻𝗒𝐿 smiled. "𝐻𝗒𝐿, yes, I'm excited. Today is the day." Coast City, July 4th, 9:01 Central Daylight Time. In the city of Coast City, people were screaming and running as they dodged out of the way of ice and water coming out of the stores and sewers from below. Floating in the air on a block of ice was a boy in a light blue fur coat hoodie as he had his face covered by the hood. "Come on out. Show yourselves heroes," he shouted, manipulating the ice and water around him as the water froze and the ice hardened into black ice as he shot at the incoming police cars that was heading his way. With all of the ice below him and around him, he manipulated them into a giant hand as he used the fingers to smash into the ground and cause more ice to rise as it froze some of the people below him and some of the building's wall. Behind their cars, the police force was doing everything that they could to stop the ice villain ahead of them, but with their current weapons and his command over the ice, it was impossible to hit him. "Cup, dang it. We can't get through that ice without him creating more and causing more damage. We're stuck down here. Then allow us to take care of it," someone said as a bright green light and a flash of green light passed over them as a gust of air pushed through. As the cop stood up, he saw the heroes of Coast City, Green Lantern Hal Jordan and 𝐻𝗒𝐿, the city's Emerald Avenger. "𝐻𝗒𝐿, we'll take care of this guy for you in a split," he told him, smashing his fist into his hand as Green Lantern flew into the air as he constructed a bat with his ring. Green Lantern, "Hey 𝐻𝗒𝐿. I thought we'd been over this already. If you did anything like this again, then you weren't gonna go to juvie again. 𝐻𝗒𝐿, forget juvie. I'm done with it," he shouted, raising his hands as he manipulated one of the fingers to reach towards the bat as they destroyed it and sent Green Lantern into the side of a building. With the ice over him, it was starting to freeze him up to the wall as he punched pieces of it off. 𝐻𝗒𝐿, I'm in the big leagues now, and I ain't going back. 𝐻𝗒𝐿, then you'll be going down, he shouted, dashing through the streets, crushing the ice with his fist as pieces were sent flying away. As he slid on the ground, he pushed himself into the air as he flew high above 𝐻𝗒𝐿 so fast that his ice had shattered due to the pressure of his kickoff from the ground and into the air. he shouted, bringing back his fist as he charged his power with 5% as he slammed his fist over 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐻's face as his hood came flying back. With the force from his punch being so powerful and 𝐻𝐿𝐻's connection to the ice gone, they were both sent to the ground as Izuku quickly used black WHP to wrap around 𝐻𝐿𝐻 as he floated the two to the ground safely. As he did, Green Lantern landed next to him on the ground. Green Lantern, good job, kid. We'll let the cops handle the rest from here. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫? Yeah, after all, today's the day. Central City, July 4th, 9:58 Central Daylight Time in Central City's bank, a hole was blasted in the hole by being covered in ice. The cause of this was by 𝐶𝐻𝐿 and right now he was being surrounded by two blurs. One yellow and one red. These two were the Flash and Kid Flash. Shooting at the two every time he gets a chance to see one of them pass by him, he shoots at them with his cold gun as he misses them every time. Flash, stealing ice. Seriously. Isn't that a bit cliché even for 𝐶𝐻𝐿? He joked, referencing to his name and what he was stealing. Kid Flash, come on, we don't have time for this. He says impatiently as he pulls down his goggles and changes his direction to rush towards 𝐶𝐻𝐿. Seeing him coming his way, he fires his cold gun at him as it hits his shoulder, freezing it partly. Pushing through it, he snags his cold gun out of his hand, leaving him defenseless as Flash runs in and knocks him out with a high-speed punch to the face. Flash, calm down, Kid Flash, oh please. You'll chat it up with the cops, with bystanders, even cold. No way. He says, looking at his mentor with a big smile on his face. Kid Flash, today is the day. And hey, we might even beat those two while we're at it. He says, whispering about two others that they were supposed to meet only to see two shadows pass over them. From above they saw Green Lantern and 𝐾𝐮𝐿 flying through the air at a fast rate as the two speedsters nodded at each other. Quickly they sped around and tied 𝐶𝐻𝐿 up to a pole and grabbed the bag with the jewelry and placed it beside him. With that they left off to meet up with the others. Washington, D.C. July 4th, 1400 hours Eastern Daylight Time in Washington, D.C. Standing on a hill far away from the crowds of people who were looking at the Washington Monument and the White House, the heroes along with their proteges stared at the base of their operations, the Hall of Justice. Batman, today is the day. Green Arrow, welcome to the Hall of Justice. Aquaman, headquarters of the Justice League. Swoosh, Kid Flash, Omen. He shouted, getting their attention as they looked behind them to see Green Lantern and 𝐾𝐮𝐿 land as the Flash and Kid Flash came in after them. Kid Flash, we lost and we're the last ones here. 𝐾𝐮𝐿. He laughed as Kid Flash punched his shoulder in defeat. Intro, A/N. Y'all already know what it is. Aqualad grabbed his water bearers as his tattoos glowed as he stares into the abyss. Robin landed on a perch as he stared into Gotham. Kid Flash crouched down as he grabbed his goggles before pulling them over his eyes. 𝐾𝐮𝐿 landed on the ground with a smile graced upon his face as he charged his power with green static bouncing off of him. Superboy floated above Happy Harbor as he stared out into the skies. Ms. Martian flew back into the midnight sky as the moon reflected behind her. Artemis pulled back her arrow as she concentrated on her target, as she then released it. Flashes of the team were then shown as they were standing in the training center with Batman, Red Tornado, and Black Canary in front of them discussing their mission. Another flash then showed a clip of Superboy and Robin jumping up out of a cargo plane, as another showed 𝐾𝐮𝐿 and Aqualad hid behind a table. Another showed Ms. Martian using her physic abilities to tear apart a plane, as another showed Robin standing up with Artemis standing behind him. Another one then showed Kid Flash running with 𝐾𝐮𝐿 not too far behind him. Another one showed Robin and Superboy behind a crate ducking incoming fire as he then threw a batarang towards the enemy. Then the final one showed the entire team standing in front of a huge explosion. In a burst of flashes it showed 𝐶𝐻𝐿 shooting his cold gun, a creature staring out from a smoke cloud as it screeched Killer Frost attacking a man in a golden helmet growling as he fought against Aqualad, Izuku pulling down his cowl, Icicle Jr. being hit with an arrow from Speedy Kid Flash, Robin, 𝐾𝐮𝐿, and Aqualad standing in front of a tube, a boy in all white with a red Superman crest on his chest as he awakened a scientist standing in front of several screens with pixels on them. Superboy charging at someone, a creature with small horns that glowed red. 𝐻𝐻𝐿ad turning around shockingly. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 charging his power to 20%. The team then turns around to stare out to the fourth wall. The Hall of Justice, July 9th, 1400 hours Eastern Standard Time. As they all left from the hill and begun walking towards the Hall of Justice, the heroes and their proteges walked through a line of tourists and photographers as they gawked at the sight of the heroes being in front of them in person. Civilian. Is that Batman? Civilian. Oh my goodness. Civilian. I see Flash and Flash Jr. Civilian. His name's Speedy. Civilian. No, Speedy's Green Arrow's sidekick. Civilian. Well, that makes no sense. Kid. Whoa, there's 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Kid, and Green Lantern. Green team represent. They all chattered seeing the heroes as they passed by them. The young proteges looked out amongst the crowd, taking in the sights of people who adored them, mostly their mentors, but at least they were acknowledged. Green Arrow, ready to see the inner sanctum? He asked Speedy as he looked back and smirked. Speedy, I was born ready. 𝐻𝐻𝐿ad, I'm glad we're all here. Kid Flash, have all four sidekicks ever been in the same place at the same time? Speedy, don't call us sidekicks, not after today. He says sternly as he suddenly feels a chop on his head, courtesy of Izuku, who is known for doing that to them when he feels they're getting a little too personal in a small matter. Calm down there, Speedy. Don't want to pop another fuse there, huh? Speedy, oof, whatever. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨, I mean, you have to give it to him. We all are sidekicks of one of the best of the best. Kid Flash, yeah. First time at the hall. I'm a little overwhelmed. Robin, you're overwhelmed. Freeze was underwhelmed. Why isn't anyone ever just whelmed? They all talked as they walked into the building to be first met with the golden statues of their mentors in front of the secret doors to the Hall of Justice. Looking at them, the five were amazed by how great they were and how big the hall was on the inside. He said, looking around as he gazed at the statues before coming across the one of his mentor. Robin, oh, maybe that's why. As they continued walking, the doors were open as two people stood behind them. Coming out, the two were Red Tornado and Martian Manhunt. Martian Manhunter, Robin, Speedy, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨, 𝐻𝐻𝐿ad, Kid Flash. Welcome. He greets as he turns around and leads them through the doors as they followed behind. Martian Manhunt, you now have unlimited access to the gym, our fully stocked gallery, and of course, our library. He says, leading them into the large room as rows of books covered the walls. Walking towards the tables and chairs of the large room, the 7 Leaguers walk forward towards the monitor as they looked back at the group. Flash, make yourselves at home. He says with open arms as the group sits down, while Izuku merely sat in the air while floating above the floor as he pulls out his book to write in. As they did so, Speedy refused to sit as he stood and watched the Leaguers as they conversated amongst themselves. Batman, quick debrief to discuss of 5 ice villains attacking on the same day. We shouldn't be long. He says to them as he turned around to face the entrance to the League's Zeta tube system as the computer comes down to scan them for access to use. Computer, recognized. Batman, Aquaman, Flash, Green Arrow, 08, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Red Tornado. It scanned as the doors to the Zeta tube opened, giving permission to the Leaguers to use. With that, Speedy watched as they were about to go inside by his questions as for why they weren't given the same access as them begged to differ. Speedy, that's it? He spoke out, grabbing their attention as well as the others. Speedy, you promised a real look inside, not a glorified backstage pass. Aquaman, it's a first step. You've been granted access few others get. Speedy, oh really? He argued as he pointed his hand towards the large windows above the shelves that showed tourists looking through them with cameras in hand taking pictures. Speedy, who cares which side of the glass we're on? Green Arrow, Roy, you just need to be patient. Speedy, what I need is respect. He says as he turns to face the others who were on edge at the deal of what was going on by their friend. Speedy, they're treating us like kids. Worse, like sidekicks. We deserve better than this. He says as the 4 look at each other, pondering the question before looking back at him. Speedy, you're kidding, right? You're playing their game. But today was supposed to be the day. Step 1 in becoming full-fledged members of the League. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨, and what was step 2? get official badges to wear on our chest. This is our first day here, we just got accepted to walk into the Hall of Justice. The main HQ of the league. What more is there to gain beside access to their vehicles and rides? Speedy, for starters, how about the fact that the hall isn't the league's real HQ? He stated as the group were questionable about what he meant as he looked at them seriously. Speedy, judging from the looks on your faces, I bet they never told you, it's just a false front for tourists and a pit stop for catching Zeta Beam teleporter tubes to the real thing, an orbiting satellite called the Watchtower. He told them as Izuku stood up from floating as he and the rest were in shock at this sudden information they were never told about even from their own mentors. Looking behind him, Green Arrow could feel the gaze of Batman on his back as he turned to face him. Green Arrow, I know, but I thought maybe we could make an exception. He tried to reason, but Batman's gaze never faltered, showing how serious of the situation it was that he caused by revealing such information. Green Arrow, or not. Aquaman, you are not helping your cause here, son. Stand down. Speedy, or what? You're going to send me to my room. And I'm not your son. I'm not even his. He says, referring to Green Arrow as he looks down on Roy. Speedy, I thought I was his partner. But not anymore. He says, grabbing his cap as he threw it down to floor, signaling his leave from being Green Arrow's sidekick. Seeing this, the others stood as Speedy turned around to leave, but he felt a hand on his chest as he looked to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 to see he was staring at him. Speedy, get your hand off of me. I guess they're right about you four. He says, slapping his hand away as he walked off, not looking back as he was heading for the exit. Speedy, you're not ready. He says, permitting his leave as he exited through the doors closing behind him. Suddenly, the alarms to the building began to sound as the group turned around to see that the alarm caused the monitors to come on as they were receiving transmission from the Watchtower as Superman's face appeared on the screen. Superman. Superman to Justice League, there's been an explosion at Project Cadmus. It's on fire. He told them as Batman thought on the place he had just said. Batman, I've had my suspicions about Cadmus. This may present the perfect opportunity to dash. Before he could finish, the alarms to the building beeped again as another transmission was received as a man in a magician's suit and a hat known as 𝐬𝗓𝗏 appeared on the screen. 𝐬𝗓𝗏 to Justice League, the sorcerer, Wotan is using the amulet of Atan to blot out the sun. Requesting full league response. He tells them as Batman looks to Superman as he gave his answer. Batman, Superman, it's a small fire. Local authorities have it under control. Batman, then Cadmus can wait. All Leaguers rendezvous at 𝐬𝗓𝗏's coordinates. Batman out. He said through a transmission sent to all members of Justice League. As he did, the other four walked over to the group as he turned around to give them orders. Batman, stay put. Robin, what? But? He asked as the other mentors stepped in. Aquaman, this is a league mission. Flash, you're not trained. Kid Flash, since when? Green Lantern, he means you're not trained to work as part of this team. He corrected as he shared a look with his protege to get the understanding cleared. Aquaman, there will be other missions when you're ready. Batman, but for now, stay put. He tells them, getting the point across as he turned to leave along with the rest of the Leaguers. As they left, Martian Manhunter and Green Arrow remained. Green Arrow, glad he didn't bring you know who. Martian Manhunter, indeed. He says as the two leaves the rest in the room as Red Tornado stands back to glance at them before he turns to leave as well. With the doors closing behind them, the four remained in the room thinking about what their mentors said. Kid Flash, when we're ready. He scoffed in disbelief. Kid Flash, how are we ever supposed to be ready when they treat us like sidekicks? He states as the others stare off in disbelief at what their mentors had said. Aqualad, my mentor, my king, I thought he trusted me. Kid Flash, trust. They don't even trust us with the basics. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, how are you so sure they didn't want to just wait for the right moment to tell us before going off of pure speculation? He says as Kid Flash looks towards him. Kid Flash, I'm sorry 𝐻𝐾𝐮𝐿, but man, you're just too kind-hearted and optimistic. They've got a secret HQ in space. He says as Aqualad looks up from the floor. Aqualad, what else aren't they telling us? Robin, I got an even better question. Why didn't we leave with Speedy? He asked as the four reflected back to what their friend had did when he left his mentor and the young team of the Junior Justice League. But within their thoughts, a lingering question remained from what Superman had told them when he first called out to them. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, what is Project 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐵? He asked as Robin smirked as an idea popped up in his head. Robin, I don't know, but I can find out. He says as the group walks over towards the computer as Robin began access it as a login was required to proceed further. Computer, access denied. Robin, wanna bet? He chuckled as he began hacking the computer's system as the group looked on with curiosity. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐵, how are you doing that? Robin, same system as the Batcave. He says pressing down on a key giving him access to the computer. Computer, access granted. It said to them as a screen popped up showing the 𝐀𝐮𝐵 building on fire with the firefighters putting it out with the water hose. Robin, alright, Project 𝐀𝐮𝐵, genetics lab here in DC. That's all there is, but if Batman's suspicious maybe we should investigate. He says presenting his idea to the group as they realized what he was saying. 𝐀𝐮𝐵, solve the case before they get the chance to. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, it would be poetic justice. He says as the two share a look before looking back at the two younger ones. Robin, hey, they're all about justice. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, sigh, but they said to stay put. Robin, for the blotting out the sun mission, not this. He says with a smirk. Kid Flash, wait, are you going to 𝐀𝐮𝐵? Because if you're going, I'm going. He says walking up placing a hand on his shoulder as the two smiled before looking back at the other two as 𝐻𝐻𝐿 sighed. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, what do you think about this? He says looking towards 𝐀𝐮𝐭 as he was scratching the back of his head. 𝐀𝐮𝐭, I mean, the whole point of today was to be designated as official members of the League. With the League away, who can save the day, except us? He questions as 𝐻𝐻𝐿 thought on what he said as he looked back at the other two who awaited for what he was going to say. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, so just like that we're a team. Robin, we didn't come for a play date. He said as 𝐻𝐻𝐿 smirked as they all were in agreement. At 𝐀𝐮𝐵, the firefighters were doing their best to put out the flames burning inside of the building. With some of the scientists who were still alive inside, they ran towards a window shouting for help. Scientist, help. Scientist, get us down. The two shouted for them as they stood close by the open window to be free from the smoke filling the air inside of the building. Stepping up, the chief over the fireman replied back through the speakerphone. Firefighter, stay put. We will get you out. He says, but as soon as he did, an explosion erupted behind them, causing them to fly out of the building as they fell through the air. Quickly, a blur of yellow and red raced towards them as they were caught and raced towards the roof of the building as they were placed down. Responsible for this was Kid Flash as he misstepped and lost his footing, causing him to fall down and catch onto the window they fell from. Firefighter, it's what's his name, Flash boy. Kid Flash, it's Kid Flash. Why is that so hard? He complained as he hung from the ledge. Racing into an alleyway, Robin, 𝐀𝐮𝐭, and 𝐻𝐻𝐿 watched from afar. Robin, so smooth. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, does he always have to run ahead? 𝐀𝐮𝐭, I feel like he does it to prove a point sometimes. But right now, we need a plan. Robin, do you dash? Turning to look for him, he found out that he was gone. 𝐀𝐮𝐭, Robin. Robin, ta. Following where his laughter was coming from, they looked up to see him swinging onto the fire truck as he ran up the ladder and shot his grappling hook to the roof as he swung to the ledge where Kid Flash was. Once he got there, he picked him up and helped him inside. 𝐀𝐮𝐭, looks like they got up there. We should do the same thing. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, right? Racing off, the two ran towards the building as 𝐻𝐻𝐿 ran towards the firefighter with the water hose. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, I need to borrow that. He tells them using his water bearer to bring the water towards him and 𝐀𝐮𝐭 as he used it as a platform to lift them up towards the roof where the scientists were. Scientist, who are you two? 𝐀𝐮𝐭, smiling, we're heroes. You're safe now. He says with a smile as he lends out his hands for them to grab as he pulled them down and used black WHP to lower them to the ground. Once they were safe, 𝐻𝐻𝐿 lowered the platform as the two got off at the window they were previously on as he dropped the water down onto the fire, extinguishing it. Once it was out, the two jumped into the room as they saw Robin and Kid Flash scrambling through the room looking into the computers and filing cabinets. 𝐀𝐮𝐭, thanks for the help. Robin, You guys handled it. Besides, we're here to investigate. Poetic justice, remember. He says as 𝐻𝐻𝐿 walks off, leaving 𝐴𝐴 to look over them. Walking into the hallway, he looked down to see that the elevator doors were open and someone, or something, was inside. Staring at the creature, or thing, he saw its red eyes as the doors shut closed. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, what was that? Robin, elevator doors should be shut down. He said, racing past him towards the elevators as the others joined them. Once there, he pulled out his gauntlet hub as he pulled up the infrastructure of the building. Robin, this is wrong. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘. This is a high-speed express elevator. It doesn't belong in a 2-story building. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, neither does what I saw. He says, walking towards the elevator's doors as he pried it open with his bare hands. As they looked into the elevator, they saw how far down it was. Robin, and that's why they need an express elevator. He said, shooting a zip line to the top of as he zipped down, creating line for Kid Flash to follow down with him. Aqualad, sliding down. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, I'm just floating down. He says as he jumps down into the, feeling the wind blow against him, as Aqualad used the line to zip down with the others. As Robin continued to zip down, his line slowly came to a stop. Robin, I'm at the end of my rope. He said, swinging over towards the door as the others swung over as well. As 𝐻𝐻𝐿 fell down through he quickly floated in the air as if he was bouncing on a trampoline as he floated up to the doors. Robin, bypassing security. He told them as he used his gauntlet to hack into the doors as they were allowed to open them, with Aqualad forcing open the doors as they got inside. Standing inside, they looked down a long hallway to see machinery and a door at the other end of the hall. Robin, welcome to Project Cadmus. He says as they started walking in, but before they could get any further, Kid Flash cracked a smile as he took off towards the other end down another hall. Aqualad, Hidwit. He warned him as Kid Flash ran down the hall as the sounds of something thumping against the floor echoed through the hall. Running into a clear way, Kid Flash was met with a large crowd of creatures walking down the hall on all fours as he barely missed being smushed by one of their fists as slid along the floor. Kid Flash. Looking up, he saw one of the creatures' fist heading his way as it was namelessly walking without noticing him before he rolled out of the way of being smushed. As he did, he ran over towards the others as they all stood and watched in bizarre at the creatures before them in wonder. One of the creatures suddenly took notice of them as it roared to the small creature on its back as it looked down to see them. Suddenly, its horn glowed as if it had the power to mentally send a message to another. Aqualad, no, nothing odd going on here. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, what are they? They questioned as they watched as the horde roamed away. In a laboratory, a scientist was working on one of the vials in the room as he mixed it with a certain red chemical. In the room was various tubes filled with creatures almost the same as the one that was on the large monster's back. As the scientist moved over towards one of the vials, he placed the red liquid inside a tube that had a blue crystal inside as it was decomposed with the mixture of the liquid becoming a blue substance. Smiling at the progression, the scientist got an alert from his computer as he looked over towards it to see the doors to the lab being opened by a man in combat uniform and a golden helmet, who walked inside of the room passing by various tanks with the words, Project B-Thil, R, written on it. Dr. Desmond. He called out to the scientist known as Dr. Desmond as he continued to work while acknowledging the man behind him. Dr. Desmond, tell me, Guardian, what part of no interruptions did you not understand? He says, placing the new vial in the container as frost came out of it, revealing various other vials the same as the one he completed as he placed it inside and closed it. Guardian, a 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 on sublevel 26 reports 4 intruders. Dr. Desmond, Sigh, did I miss a perimeter breach alert? He asked, turning around. Guardian, no. Dr. Desmond, then the 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 is confused. Whatever might occur in our faux lab above ground, the real Cadmus is the most secure facility in all of DC. Guardian, my job is to keep it that way. He says as Dr. Desmond sighs as he returns back to his work. Dr. Desmond, fine, take a squad. He tells him as Guardian nods his head as he was about to turn around only to be met with the creature from before in the elevator. Might I recommend Guardian leave his 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 behind? If violence should occur. He voices his opinion as Guardian revels on the thought. Guardian, the little guy will be in the way. Dr. Desmond, no. He detests turning around to see the creature and Guardian. Dr. Desmond, the advantage of instant telepathic communication outweighs other concerns. He states, rubbing the 𝐻𝐿 over his desk as it purred at his touch as it sensed what it was commanded to do, sending a telepathic link to the other 𝐻𝐿 on Guardian's shoulder. They overwritten his thoughts as he became compelled that he needed the 𝐻𝐿. Guardian, I need my 𝐻𝐿 with me at all times. He says as if he was a zombie under mind control as he saluted back towards Dr. Desmond and left the room. As he left, Dr. Desmond watched with discernment as he returned back to his work, knowing he should keep his mind set back on his work. Robin, okay, I'm officially whelmed. He says after hacking the doors to another part of the lab as the four entered. In front of them sat tubes with creatures inside that seemed to generate electricity that powered the cells they were in. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, I know I said this twice already, but what are these things? He says as they walked into the large room. Kid Flash, this is how they hide this massive underground facility from the world. The real 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 isn't on the grid. It generates its own power with these things. Must be what they're bred for. He suggested as 𝐻𝐿𝐿 walked towards one of the tubes as he examined how it looked and how it was generating the electricity. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, even the name is a clue. The 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 of myth created a new race by sowing dragon's teeth into the earth. Robin, and this 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 creates new life too. Let's find out why. He says, walking over towards a computer as he wired it with his gauntlet to hack into it. Upon doing so, information popped up on the creatures as he was able to access it. Robin, they call them xenomorphs. Well, look at the stats on these things. He says, scrolling through them as he various kinds of them showed how they look and what abilities they had. Robin, super strength, telepathy, razor claws. These are living weapons. He listed as Kid Flash looked over to see the same information he was seeing. Kid Flash, they're engineering an army, but for who? Robin. Wait, there's something else. Project KR. He said, getting everyone's attention as 𝐻𝐿𝐿 and 𝐻𝐿𝐿 walked over to get a better look at what he was talking about. Robin, the files triple encrypted. I can't dash. Guardian, don't move. He demanded, storming into the room with xenomorphs that growled and hissed upon seeing the four. As they turned around to see who confronted them, they both were shocked by who it was. Guardian, wait. Robin, 𝐻𝐿𝐿, Kid Flash, 𝐻𝐿𝐿. Robin, at least he got your name right. He joked as he continued stealing the information to put into his gauntlet. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, I know you. Guardian, a hero. Guardian, I do my best. Kid Flash, then what are you doing here? He questioned as the three walked up, standing in front of Robin as he did what he had to do. Guardian, I'm Chief of Security. You're trespassing. But we can call the Justice League, figure this out. Kid Flash, you think the Justice League's gonna approve of you breeding weapons? Guardian, weapons. What are you talking about dash? He grunted as the 𝐻𝐿𝐿 had started to affect his mind with its telepathy as his thoughts were reassorted. Guardian, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Take them down hard. No mercy. He ordered as the xenomorphs hissed at them as the group stood on guard. Jumping down in front of them, Robin dropped a smoke bomb down as a cloud of smoke covered them. Instantly, Robin shot his grappling hook up to the ceiling as he pulled himself up while the others fought down below. As one of the xenomorphs recovered, Kid Flash stood up from the sudden attack as he nearly dodged being attacked by the xenomorph. As it tried attacking him with a flurry of claw attacks, he dodged out of the way as he jumped up a wall and kicked off as he kicked the xenomorph to the ground as he got up and jumped against the wall before kicking off and into another xenomorph. Out from the smoke, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 dodged one of the xenomorph attempting to attack him as he slammed his fist into the side of the xenomorph before side flipping in the air as he slammed his foot against the xenomorph into the ground. As he did, his danger sense triggered him from behind as he had to duck as another xenomorph came and tried to tackle him to the floor, only for him to move the heel of his soul into the xenomorph's face as it flew back and hit the glass wall behind it. From behind him, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 came running out of the smoke as he threw a xenomorph to the wall. After throwing it away, he quickly high-kicked another xenomorph away as he was too slow to block Guardian, ramming his shield into his back as he was sent rolling across the floor. As he got up, he saw Guardian running towards him as he prepared himself to fight him as he started off with a right hook with 𝐻𝐻𝐿 parrying as he threw a right hook then a left hook only for Guardian to block with his shield as he punched him in the face. Taking the blow, 𝐻𝐻𝐿 ducked under another hit as he hit his side as Guardian took the blow and rammed his shield against him into the computer behind him. Suddenly from behind him black WHP wrapped around his arms and legs as 𝐻𝐻𝐿 looked behind him to see 𝗧𝗫𝐿 holding him as Kid Flash ran behind him. He shouted to him as 𝐻𝐻𝐿 focused on Guardian as he used his bioelectricity to shock him as Guardian and the 𝐻𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 on his shoulder fell to the ground. Retracting black WP 𝗧𝗫𝐿 ran up to 𝐻𝐻𝐿 as he tapped his shoulder. 𝗧𝗫𝐿, come on. He told him as they ran away as more Xenomorphs were chasing after them through the smoke. As they ran, they turned a corner as they saw Robin hacking into an elevator. Turning around, 𝗧𝗫𝐿 saw the Xenomorphs coming as they rushed towards Robin. Kid Flash, way to be a team player, Robin, weren't you right behind me? He says hacking into the elevator as it opened. With the two running inside of the elevator, they looked back to see 𝗧𝗫𝐿 and 𝐻𝐻𝐿 running as the doors were starting to close. Quickly the two jumped in just in the nick of time as the doors closed just before the Xenomorphs could reach them. As the elevator started to descend into the lower parts of the building, the group took a minute to recuperate and strategize. 𝐻𝐻𝐿, we're headed down. Kid Flash, dude out is up. They questioned Robin as he looked towards them. Robin, excuse me. Project KR. It's down on sublevel 𝗧𝗫𝐿. Okay. Wait. This is too much. He says walking past them as he gripped his cowl to think on the situation as he sighed, releasing the breath he had inside of him due to the built-up uneasiness. 𝗧𝗫𝐿, we found out that there are creatures being created down here for whatever purpose we don't know of, and Guardian somehow is attacking us for no reason. The only logical thing to do right now is to contact the League. Get them involved. He said as the doors to the elevator dinged as they opened. Robin, we're here now. Might as well keep going. He said passing by 𝗧𝗫𝐿 as he and Kid Flash ran into the red room filled with organic-like walls. Feeling a hand on his shoulder, he looked up to see 𝐻𝐻𝐿 nod his head at him as 𝗧𝗫𝐿 sighed as he nodded his head and got himself back in the game. Running out of the elevator, they followed Robin and Kid Flash as they came up to an intersection. 𝗧𝗫𝐿, which way? Robin, yeah. Bizarre-looking hallway 1, or bizarre-looking hallway 2? Halt. Spoke the creature from before as he stood with his hand raised as his horns glowed. Suddenly barrels began to float into the air as he sent them towards the 4. Quickly Robin threw one of his birdarang at the barrel as it exploded as 3 more of the barrels were sent flying towards them. Just as they were about to hit them, they stopped in midair as the creature stared in confusion knowing he didn't stop the attack. 𝗧𝗫𝐿, confused. Don't be. He said, revealing that he had stopped the barrels from heading their way as he used his telekinesis to stop them before throwing them back at the creature as he shielded himself as he braced for the impact. Blowing away the smoke, he saw that they had escaped as the doors to the elevator had opened, revealing Guardian and the Xenomorphs who came with him. They are headed for Project KR. He told them as a sense of urgency overcame them as they all rushed after them. Walking out of an enclosed lab down the hall, a scientist walked out as she was checking everything off of a checklist. As she heard the sounds of Kid Flash taking a turn down the hallway towards her as she was too late to stop as the two collided. Scientist, she screamed, falling to the floor. As Kid Flash slid to a stop close by the door. As he picked himself up, he saw that the door was closing as he quickly went to go and grab a barrel as he placed it in the way of the door closing, preventing it from moving any further to stall time. Kid Flash, hurry! He shouted to them as he stepped through the door as the others soon joined after him as 𝗧𝗫𝐿 kicked the door closed behind him as Guardian and the Xenomorphs were too late from reaching them. Behind him, Robin had just hacked the door, making sure that no one could get in or out. Robin, I disabled the door. We're safe. 𝗻𝐻𝐿, we're trapped. Kid Flash, guys. You want to see this? He called out to them as the 3 looked over to see he was standing by a console that was wired to a tube. As he pressed down on the SWs to turn it on, lights wired to life as the 4 stared in shock at what was before them. Sitting in a tube was a boy with black hair in a white skin-tight suit with the Superman crest over his chest. Over the tube the words were over it as inside were 3 genomes who were also in tubes above him. Robin, whoa. He said, sounding shocked by this as Kid Flash walked up to the tube to examine the words plastered on the front of the tube. Kid Flash, big K little r. It's the atomic symbol for Krypton. He said as an idea popped up in his head as he turned back to face the others. Kid Flash, clone. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, Robinek. Robin, alright. He replied, getting right to it as he got to work on hacking into the system to get the information on Project 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Robin, weapon designation Superboy. A clone force grown in 16 weeks. He exaggerated as he read what was being told as he couldn't help but think of the science needed for this. Robin, DNA acquired from Superman. 𝐴𝐴, stolen from Superman. Kid Flash, there's no way the big guy knows about this. The two voiced their opinions as 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 looked towards Project 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴, known as Superboy, as he carefully watched as the genomes above him were sleeping as he was. Robin, solar suit allows him to absorb yellow sun radiation 24/𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴, and these creatures. Robin, genomorph gnomes. Telepathic, force-feeding him an education. Kid Flash, and we can guess what else. He says, looking over the console to the others. Kid Flash, they're making SLV out of. Well, Superman's son. 𝐴𝐴, now we should contact the League. He said as the others nodded, their heads as they attempted to contact their predecessors, but their signal was faint and weak. Robin, no signal. Kid Flash, we're in too deep. Literally. He said as they stood watching the boy inside of the pod. Outside the doors, the Genomorphs as well as Guardian and the scientists they bumped into before were trying to access the doors to get inside, but it was proved useless. Dr. Desmond, they're still in there with the weapon. He asked, questioning why the doors weren't open as he referred to the clone inside of the room as a weapon. Guardian, we can't get the door open. He says as Dr. Desmond looks over to the creature that walked with him. Dr. Desmond, use your telekinesis. I have tried to no avail. Dr. Desmond, useless. This is a debacle. Get some G-Trolls down here to muscle the door open. He ordered, walking over to Guardian as he stood in his face. Guardian, already on their way. He tells him, standing his ground as Dr. Desmond looked away as other thoughts occurred in his mind. Dr. Desmond, you realize once we get in there, we can't ever let them out. Guardian, Doc, these aren't your typical meddling kids. You don't want to get on the wrong side of the Justice League. Dr. Desmond, better than getting on the wrong side of the Cadmus Board of Directors, believe me. He groaned as he thought on the situation, on what he could do to buy time for them to bypass the lock on the door to get it open, as an idea came to his mind. Dr. Desmond, contact the G-Genomes inside of 𝐾𝐮𝐴𝐴. He commanded the G-Genome on his shoulder as it complied by reaching within the room with its telepathy as the G-Genomes inside received the message as their horns glowed. Seeing this, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐴 eyed the small creatures as in the back of his head he felt that something was wrong. Kid Flash, this is wrong. Robin, we can't leave him like this. The two said as 𝐴𝐴 looked over towards 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐴 as he hadn't taken his eyes off of the creatures as he knew they had to make a decision. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐴, open up the tube. No one deserves to be a weapon for someone else's gain. He said to Robin as he nodded away as he hacked the pod and opened it up, allowing the cold air inside of the pod to be released. As the others watched as the resting boy remained standing against the platform behind him. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐴 saw his hands stretching as they popped the bones within his hand from the sudden numbness as his senses warned him of incoming danger. As the others slowly watched, Superboy awakened as he eyed 𝐴𝐴. With a sudden impulse he jumped from the platform, leaping towards him only for 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐴 to push 𝐴𝐴 out of the way as the boy knocked him to the floor. Looking up, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐴 was immediately punched by Superboy 3 times as he targeted his temple to render him unconscious. Before he could do anything else, Robin and Kid Flash grabbed his arms to restrain him from moving. Kid Flash, hang on, Soupy. Robin, we're on your side. The two tried reasoning with him as he grabbed Kid Flash's collar and threw him over to a glass tube, knocking him unconscious. Robin, I don't want to do this. He says, pulling out a gas bomb as he shoved it into his mouth as it exploded. Upon this distraction, 𝐴𝐴 came over and kicked him away from atop of their friend as they looked down to see that he was unconscious. Pulling out his taser wires, Robin shot them at him as he stood still as the electricity from the wires didn't faze him. Grabbing the wires, he pulled up towards him as he slammed him down to the floor as he stomped his foot down on top of his chest, pressuring his heart and lungs as he gasped for air. Robin. In front of him, he looked up to hear the air move as he saw 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D leaping towards him with a water mace. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D, enough! He shouted, slamming his mace against him, knocking him away from Robin as he flew against his platform. As 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D ran over towards Robin, he checked on him to see if he was okay, only to find that he was beaten and rendered unconscious. Looking up, he saw that Superboy had recovered as he looked over towards 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D, we are trying to help you, he told him as Superboy stopped for a moment, only for him to growl as he leapt forward, ramming him into the walls of the room. As he raised his fist to punch 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D, he kicked him away as he slid across the floor as he charged at him to punch, as Superboy took the attack as he swung for his face, only for him to miss as he was kicked in his stomach and pushed back. As he took 2 steps forward, 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D ran up behind him as he wrapped his arms up underneath his shoulders as he applied his bioelectricity to harm damage to him as it seemed to pain him. He shouted in pain as he looked back to glare at 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D as he knelt down and jumped towards the ceiling, ramming 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D's back against the wall as he fell back down and jumped back up, doing the same thing. Once they came back down, 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D fell from off of his back as Superboy stared at the fallen 4 before heading over towards the door to the room. As everyone was still on the outside of the door, the sound of the door being pushed open startled them as they looked back to see Project 𝐀𝐮 holding the door open. Walking over towards him, Dr. Desmond looked inside to see the unconscious heroes laying down on the floor as he smiled at the work the clone had done. Dr. Desmond, attaboy, he says, looking back impressed as Superboy only stood like a statue with no purpose further remaining for orders. After a while, Dr. Desmond headed back to his lab as he placed his 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 back down on his desktop as he pressed a button, bringing up 7 screens that turned on, only showing white pixels of what appeared to be people without showing their appearance. Dr. Desmond, you require an audience with the light, the person asked behind the screen, announcing themselves as the light. Dr. Desmond, yes. Very sorry to disturb you at this late hour. Light number 2, just make your report, the light said impatiently, already annoyed with being wasted time any more than they should. Clearing his throat at the tone of the light's voice, Dr. Desmond said what he had to say. Dr. Desmond, of course. Well, we had a small fire here at Project 𝐀𝐮. The origin of the incident is still unclear, but it seems to have attracted some unwanted guest. He goes on to say as back in the room, Robin, Kid Flash, 𝐷𝐀𝐻𝐿𝐴D, and 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D were placed inside of pods with Superboy watching over them like a guard. Dr. Desmond, the 4 sidekicks, Robin, Kid Flash, 𝐷𝐀𝐻𝐿𝐴D, and 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴D breached security. They found and released the weapon, the Superboy. Of course, the clone is under our telepathic control and as ordered turned against his would-be liberators. The 4 are contained and we don't believe the League knows they're here. He goes to says as a question was still on his mind of how he should deal with them. Dr. Desmond, what should I do with them? He asked as the light took a moment to consider on what to do before they finally gave him their answer. Light number 2, clone them. Light number 1, the substitutes shall serve the light and only the light. Dr. Desmond, and the originals? He asked. Light number 1, destroy them. Leave no trace. He said as Dr. Desmond acknowledged what he said as a smile grew on his face. Inside of the room, the 4 remained unconscious inside of their tubes as they were kept shackled inside of them. You must awaken, a voice said, echoing through their minds as they began to stir within their minds. You must awaken now. Kid Flash, 𝐻𝐿𝐴D. He gasped as the others woke up as well to see that they were inside of tubes, the same one as Superboy, who they realized was watching them like a guard. Kid Flash, what do you want? He questioned him as the others seemed to notice that he wasn't doing anything as he only watched them. Kid Flash, quit staring. You're creeping me out. Robin, KF, how about we not tick off the guy who can fry us with a look? He says as 𝐷𝐀𝐻𝐿𝐴D continues to look at Superboy as he moved his fingers a little, giving way for a strand of black WE to slither into his shackle. In the hallway, Dr. Desmond and the scientist from earlier walked with him as they entered through the hall. Dr. Desmond, Prepare the cloning sequence for the new project Sidekick, now. He ordered the scientist as she walked off. Do as she was told. Walking forward, Dr. Desmond met with Guardian as he watched as the Genomorphs were fixing up the door. Guardian, almost done here, Doc. He told him as Dr. Desmond watched as they worked on the door. Walking into the room, he saw the inside, wondering if Superboy was in his pod, only to find out that it was empty. Dr. Desmond, where's the weapon? Guardian, Superboy. He said, calling him by his name. Guardian, he carried the intruders to the cloning chamber. Dr. Desmond, we have Genomorphs for that. Get the weapon back in its pod. Guardian, I don't see the harm in letting the kid stretch his legs. Dr. Desmond, oh really now? He says as the G-Gnome on his shoulder sent a telepathic message to the G-Gnome on Guardian's shoulder as it tampered with his mind, making him think otherwise. Guardian, that clone belongs in a cage. He declared as he turned around and walked off back towards the room. Standing in the room, Superboy stared at the 4 captives in front of him. Aqualad, we only sought to help you. He says, locked up within his pod, as Kid Flash agreed. Kid Flash, yeah. We save you and you turn on us. How's that for Grat Dash? 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘, Kid Flash, I think this is the time you need to stop talking. I think our new friend here wasn't in control of his actions. He says as Superboy perks up at what he was saying as he slowly began to make some improvements with his lock, as Robin had the same idea as he used a pin from his glove to hack his lock. Superboy, well, what if I wasn't? Kid Flash, he can talk. He says ignorantly as Superboy was ticked by being called a as if he was an object as he glared at him. Superboy, yes he can. He responded as Kid Flash got looks from the other members of his team. Kid Flash, what? Not like I said. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘, those creatures that were in your pod. The Genomorphs, they taught you telepathically. Superboy, they taught me much. He replied looking towards him. Superboy, I can read, right? I know the names of things. Robin, but have you seen them? Have you ever seen them? Have they ever actually let you see the sky? Or the sun? Superboy, images are implanted in my mind, but no. I have not seen them. He says disappointedly as he thinks back to the fact he never saw them once. Aqualad, do you know what you are, who you are? Superboy, I am the Superboy, a xenomorph, a clone made from the DNA of Superman, created to replace him should he perish. To destroy him should he turn from the light. He said as the 4 shared a concerned look at the thought of what he was created for. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘, Superman. To be like him is an honored aspiration. The Man of Steel is someone to be looked up to and inspired by. But to be like him, you deserve to make your own choices. Beyond being just a clone. Beyond being just a copy of what he is to become. Beyond being in a solar suit that confines you to a pod. Beyond Cadmus. Superboy, I live because of Cadmus. Cadmus is my home. Robin, your home is a test tube. We can show you the sun. Kid Flash, pretty sure it's after midnight, but we can show you the moon. They said as he looked back to 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗃, who looked back at him. 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃, we can introduce you, show you Superman. He said to him as Superboy had grown hopeful, thinking that it would be possible to see the man that he was created to be. Dr. Desmond, no, they can't. He said, announcing his presence as he, Guardian, and one of his scientists walked into the room, catching Superboy off guard as he turned his head to see him. Dr. Desmond, they will be otherwise occupied. Activate the cloning process. Robin, pass. Batcave's crowded enough. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗃 won't work on me. Can't mess with my BLD. They told him as he was infuriated by hearing them talk that he focused more on Superboy standing in the room. Dr. Desmond, and get the weapon back in its pod. He ordered to Guardian as he walked over to him as he grabbed his shoulder as he looked towards 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗃 for a decision. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗃, don't let them make decisions for you. You are your own person. He told him as Superboy thought about their conversation from earlier as he shoved Guardian's hand away. Dr. Desmond, don't start thinking now. He said to him as he walked past him as the G-Gnome on his shoulder off to his shoulder as it possessed his mind, making him stand still as he was forced to listen to what he had to say. Dr. Desmond, see, you're not a real boy. You're a weapon. And you belong to me. Well, the Cadmus. Same thing. Now get back to your pod. He orders as the 𝐻𝐿𝐵 on his shoulders made him turn around as he walked out of the room, leaving the others behind as Dr. Desmond turned to see them before turning his head back to his scientist as she was accessing the console to activate the cloning procedure. With one look to Dr. Desmond, he nodded, telling her to start it as the machines wired to life as small needles stuck out from inside of the pod as it shocked them while painfully taking samples of their BLD into the sphere below them that contained their BLD. Dr. Desmond, "Where's WX?" he asked as the creature known as WX appeared out from the corner of the room from out of the darkness as it stared at him. Dr. Desmond, "Lurking as usual. Get the genomes downloading their memories. When that's done, delete the source material," he ordered him as he turned around to watch as the machines took their BLD. Robin, Kid Flash, the two screamed in pain as walking down the hallway Superboy mindlessly walked with no control over his body. For him it was like sitting in a chair as he watched his body move through a TV in front of him. But his hearing was still accessible, and he could hear the screams of the people who tried to save him from captivity. 𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐷, Deku. Hearing their screams echo in his ears, he couldn't help but continue walking as it was all that he could. Enduring the pain brought onto him, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 forced himself through the pain as he thought about Superboy and how he shared the same abilities as him. If he was super strong and super fast, then he must have super hearing. With that, he came up with an idea to reach him as he looked up through the glass of the pod he was in. "Superboy, please, if you can hear me, listen. You deserve to live your life like you should. Not under the hands of anyone that you think can control you. You have a path that you and you alone should follow. Like Superman, who goes by doing the right thing. As a weapon or a boy, you have the choice to decide on who you want to be, but ask yourself the main question. What would Superman do?" He whispered to him as Superboy suddenly stopped moving as he gained control over his body. Sensing his struggle, the 𝐻𝐿𝐵 looked towards him as it tried even harder to make him move as he growled in resistance. Back inside of the room, Dr. Desmond and the others watched as the spheres were being filled with their BLD, only for the doors to bang, catching their attention. Turning around, they saw Superboy ripping apart the door from its frame as he threw it to the side. Upon doing so, the cloning sequence stopped as the four looked up towards him. "Deku, you're here. Dr. Desmond, I told you to get back to your dash." Before he could finish anything, as he and the others approached him, they were knocked away by Superboy as he stood in the middle of the floor. "Superboy, you don't get to tell me what to do," he told the down Dr. Desmond as he turned around towards the others as he examined their pods. "Kid Flash, you here to help us or fry us?" he asked as Superboy looked at him as he squinted his eyes, attempting to see if something would happen, only for nothing to happen. Superboy, I don't seem to have heat vision, so I suppose helping is my only option," he said as Robin was able to free himself from his shackles as he kicked his way out of his pod. Robin, "Finally. Lucky Batman isn't here. He'd have my head for taking so long." "Kid Flash, seriously, that's what you're worried about? The whole league will have our heads after tonight," he said as Robin reached towards the console as he activated the pod's case to open. "Robin, free 𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐷 and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. I'll get Kid Mouth. Deku, no need," he said as from his pod darkness exploded from his hand as his shackles were destroyed as strands of black WHP stuck out from his wrist. As he jumped down from his pod, he looked back towards the other two as he destroyed their shackles using black WP as they jumped down from their pods. As 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stood up, he faced Superboy as he looked at him surprised. "𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, thank you for coming back to help us," he said to him as Superboy nodded as he looked back at the rest as everyone nodded and ran for it out of the room. Once they did, Dr. Desmond looked up at them as they ran. "Dr. Desmond, you'll never get out of here. I'll have you back in pods before morning," he shouted to them as Robin and Kid Flash turned around. "Robin, that guy is not whelmed at all. Kid Flash, what is it with you and this whelmed thing?" the two said to each other as Robin threw 4 of his discs towards the spheres containing their BLD as it exploded. Watching as it destroyed and as the others escaped, Dr. Desmond was furious as he watched in curiosity as they escaped. "Dr. Desmond, activate every xenomorph in Cadmus," He ordered the Giganome on his shoulder as it obeyed what it was told as all the Genomorphs in 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 as they begin to awaken inside of their pods. Running down the hall the group ran as Robin used his glove to map out where they were. Robin, we're 42 levels below ground, but if we get to an elevator we can get out of here. He told them as they continued running only to see that the end of the hallway was blocked out by G-Trolls. Coming to a stop they saw that out of the walls the Genomorphs came crawling out of their pods as they watched in worry as their exit was blocked. But seeing how they were being blocked out and this was his only way of getting out to freedom, Superboy roared in fury as he jumped up towards one of the G-Trolls as he knocked it down. Once he knocked it down, he squashed to the floor by another G-Troll as the others had to fight off the other Genomorphs heading towards them. As one of the G-Trolls walked over towards 𝐸𝐻𝐼, it raised its huge fist in an attempt to squash him only for 𝐸𝐻𝐼 to catch the huge hand as he swung the large creature around into another G-Troll. Once it was thrown away the others ran past him as he was about to catch up only until they felt the cave walls shake. Turning around they saw Superboy punching the G-Troll into the wall as pieces of the ceiling was starting to fall down. Aqualad, Superboy, the goal is escape, not to be buried alive down here. Superboy, you want escape? Rhea. He roared as he grabbed the injured G-Troll as he threw it at a herd of incoming G-Trolls as they were knocked down. Running towards the elevator doors, Aqualad pried it open as the group looked inside. As Kid Flash jumped into the as he ran, Robin shot a zipline to the top as 𝐸𝐻𝐼 jumped in and grabbed Kid Flash as he flew up behind Robin to catch up. Once they were in, Superboy grabbed Aqualad as he threw his arm around his shoulder as he jumped high into the as they missed being attacked by a G-Troll. Soaring high into the air, Superboy realized the pull of gravity on him as he was slowly coming to a stop in the air. Superboy, I'm falling, he said as they were coming back down as Robin and 𝐸𝐻𝐼 saw this. Quickly 𝐸𝐻𝐼 shot a strand of black W towards him as it wrapped around his arm as he pulled the two back up into the air over towards the side of the as he sat himself and Kid Flash down beside them. Superboy, Superman can fly. Why can't I? Kid Flash, don't know, but it looks like you can leap tall buildings in a single bound. Still cool, he said, giving him words of encouragement as he gave him a thumbs up. Superboy, thank you. Robin, guys, this will have to be our exit. Told them as they looked up due to the sounds of a hurtling elevator coming down at high speeds. Aqualad and Superboy kicked open the door to the level they were on as they jumped in to avoid being crushed by the elevator. Looking ahead they saw that Genomorphs had spotted them as they ran. While they were running, Superboy heard a voice in his head that was giving him directions. Turn left, brother. The voice told him as Superboy didn't question the voice in his head. Superboy, go left. He told them as they all took a left turn down into another hallway as he heard the voice speak to him again. Turn right. Superboy, right. He told them as they took a right turn into another hallway as they came up to a dead end. Kid Flash, great directions, Soupy. You trying to get us repod? Superboy, no. I don't understand, he says apologetically after listening to the voice give him directions as they were now lost, or so they thought. Robin, don't apologize. This is perfect, he says as the Genomorphs came running around the corner only to find out they escaped through the vents. Kid Flash, at this rate we'll never get out, he says as suddenly Superboy hears something. Superboy, listen, he says turning around as the others look behind him to see nothing, but with Superboy and his enhanced hearing he was able to hear the Genomorphs crawling through the ventilation. Running through the halls chasing after them, Dr. Desmond as well as Guardian and WX were tracking their movements thanks to the motion sensor technology he held in his hands. Dr. Desmond, someone, Robin, I wager, hacked our systems, deactivating internal security cameras, but he neglected the motion sensors. He told them as they ran towards the male bathroom as the motion sensor tracked them coming out inside there. Dr. Desmond, the Genomorphs are closing in. They're all coming out in here. We have them cornered, he says as they walk inside of the restroom hearing movements from inside the ventilation as he smiled thinking his plan was working, only to be surprised by the group of Genomorphs crawling out of the an onto them as they fell to the floor. Dr. Desmond, he hacked the motion sensors. Robin, I hacked the motion sensors. he says with a cheeky smile as he wired his glove into the building's sensory system. Kid Flash, sweet. Robin. Still plenty of them between us and out. Kid Flash, but I've finally got room to move, he said, pulling down his goggles as he turned towards the door to staircase that would lead upwards. Instantly, he bursted off, leaving the others behind as he raced all the way up through the stairs. Running, he noticed a group of Genomorphs running down the staircase towards him. Picking up more speed, he blitzed towards them, knocking them down as the others ran up the staircase behind him. Robin, more behind us, he shouted back as they looked to see that more Genomorphs were coming up the stairs. Quickly, Superboy stomped his foot down, causing the staircase to break as the Genomorphs fell downward. With time against them, Dr. Desmond as well as Guardian and WX took the elevator to catch up with them. Guardian, we'll cut them off at sub-level 1. Dr. Desmond, we'd better, or the board will have our heads. My head. He emphasized the dire situation they were in as he held his head in his hand as he thought of any possible solutions that could fix this entire mess. Suddenly, one came to mind as he pressed the emergency stop button as they were on the level he needed to be for this plan to work. Dr. Desmond, I need to get something from Project Blockbuster, just in case. I'll meet you at sub-level 1. He told them as the doors closed behind him. As Kid Flash ran up the stairs with his blur following behind him. He made it to sub-level 1 as he raced down the hallway only to see that the doors were closing and that he was too late to reach it. Kid Flash, oh crud. He braced himself for impact as he slammed into the closed door. Aqualad, we're cut off from the street, he says, running up behind him as they caught up while he rubbed the back of his head to soothe the pain. Kid Flash, yeah, my head hadn't noticed. He groans as Superboy walks past him as he attempts to open the door by force as Aqualad came to help him. With all of their strength, the two weren't able to even budge it. Robin, can't hack fast enough to open the doors. Deku, get back. Let me try this, he said, running down the hall towards the door as he reeled his fist back. Stepping back, Superboy and Aqualad watched as he was an inch away from punching the door. Deku, 5% should be enough. Berea, he shouted as he slammed his fist against the steel door. In shock, he looked at his fist to see he only caused a dent. Deku, no way. That punch was twice as strong as Green Lantern's construct fist. Kid Flash, great. Now we really have no way out of here. Robin, come on. This way, he said, kicking down a side door as he and the others ran through as Genomorphs had found them. As they ran down the hallway, they were met with Guardian and more Genomorphs that growled seeing them, with them surrounded by Genomorphs and G-Trolls. The group prepared themselves to fight, only for all the Genomes to use their powers to render them asleep. Falling to the floor, the Genomorphs stood over them only for WX to walk in as his horns were glowing, connecting with their telepathic connection. WX, perhaps for the sake of all Genomorphs, our brother Superboy should make up his own mind, he said, revealing himself to be the voice from earlier as Superboy woke up from his sleep to talk to WX. Superboy, it was you. WX, yes, brother. I set the fire and lured your new friends down into Cadmus. Woke them when they were in danger. Superboy, and guided me. What? He questioned his motives. WX, because you are our hope, the Genomorph hero. You will blaze a trail for all our brothers, showing us the way of freedom, he said as all of the Genomes released their telepathic control over the four as well as Guardian. Guardian, NH. What's going on? Aqualad, Deku, feels like I just been hit with a hammer, they said, waking up as they looked up to see that Superboy stood in front of them as he stared at WX. WX, what is your choice, brother? He asked him as he took a moment to decide on what he wanted to do. To choose between freedom of being a weapon. Holding his head up, he looked at WX as he made his decision. Superboy, I choose freedom, he declared as WX nodded at his decision. Guardian, it feels like fog lifting, he says, reconnecting his memory as he looks up to see the five standing upright in front of him and the other Genomorphs. Deku, Guardian. Guardian, go. I'll deal with Desmond. Dr. Desmond, I think not, he said, announcing himself as Guardian, and the other Genomorphs looked to see him. Dr. Desmond, Project Blockbuster gives me the power to restore order to Cadmus. he declared, holding the vial in his hand containing the serum as he drank it. As he swallowed the liquid, his body began to change and morph as his bone structure popped beneath the skin of his flesh. Dr. Desmond, rag. He grunted as he felt the change to himself coming as his flesh began to peel off, revealing scales of gray hardened skin beneath. Tearing through his clothes, he growled as his eyes changed black as darkness as his pupils were BLD red. Sensing the change as they watched mortified, the others could do nothing as he changed into a more monstrous man than he was before. As he roared, signifying his transformation, the others watched as Superboy growled, "Guardian, everyone back," he told them as he charged at the now named Blockbuster as he was backhanded away. "Superboy!" he roared, leaping towards him as he punched him, only for Blockbuster to slam him to the floor. As Superboy got back up, he uppercut Blockbuster and unleashed a flurry of attacks across his face. Taking the force of the attacks, Blockbuster struck across his face as he was sent flying across the floor. Recovering from the attack, he jumped high into the air to crash down on top of him, only Blockbuster to send them both flying through the top of the floor into the main building above Cadmus. Robin. Okay, that's one way to bust through the ceiling. Kid Flash, you think Labco planned that? He questioned as Robin shot a grappling hook up to the hole as Kid Flash held on to travel up with him. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 then walked over as they stood underneath the hole. "Aqualad, I doubt he is planning anything anymore," he said, holding on to 𝐀𝐻𝐮𝐴's shoulder as he flew the two up into the hole. Flying up through the hole, they were met with Superboy and Blockbuster fighting as he was slammed to the floor and then thrown their way. Quickly, 𝐀𝐻𝐮𝐴 powered up as arcs of energy bounced around his body as he toughened up his dexterity as he caught Superboy as they slid back. The others caught up with him as they recovered, standing side by side as they faced Blockbuster. "Aqualad, my friend, I think you should stop holding back," he said as Superboy looked towards 𝐀𝐻𝐮𝐴, surprised at the thought of him holding back. "𝐀𝐻𝐮𝐴, you're right," he said as the arcs around his body intensified as the air around him became stronger. "𝐀𝐻𝐮𝐴, 20% should be enough. If that isn't enough, I'll crank it up even higher," he says as they stare at Blockbuster with the intention to beat him. "Let's go," he said as Kid Flash raced off as the others followed behind him. As Blockbuster attempted to strike him, he slid underneath his punch as he stood behind him waiting to trip him. As he looked forward, he saw Superboy and Aqualad leap towards him as they punched him, sending him back as he tripped over Kid Flash to the floor. "Kid Flash, learned that one in kindergarten," he says as Robin hopped over him as he sent several of his discs at Blockbuster only to be deflected as he tried getting up, only to feel a heavy hand slam across his face as he was sent flying across the room into the wall. Dazed by the punch, he looked up to see Superboy prepare to grab him as he growled in anger and as he picked him up and drove him through one of the pillars inside of the room. Retaliating, Superboy punched him only for Blockbuster to punch him as he reeled his fist back again, only to get caught by water wrapping around him. Looking back, he saw Aqualad leaping towards him as he kicked up his face. Jumping onto the top of the pillar, he summoned his water mace as he attempted to slam it down, only for it to get caught by Blockbuster as he slammed him to the floor. As he did, he was too late to react to the back of 𝐀𝐻𝐮𝐴's heel slamming across his jaw as he fell back. Quickly, 𝐀𝐻𝐻𝐮𝐴 stepped up from the floor as he unleashed a flurry of low and high kick attacks as he back-kicked him into the middle of the floor. Seeing the opportunity to attack, Kid Flash raced across the room to punch his face, only for Blockbuster to grab his fist as he raised him into the air. Getting up from the floor, Aqualad planned to sneak attack him, only for Kid Flash to swing into him as they flew into the walls. As Aqualad recovered, he was suddenly drove through a pillar as he was crashed into the wall. Being held, he looked up to see Blockbuster send a punch to his face as the entire building shook. Seeing this, Robin caught on to what was happening as he brought up the building's structure scan on his glove. "Of course. 𝐾𝐻𝐿, get over here," he shouted out to the two as they raced over. While they did, Aqualad was held in the palms of Blockbuster as he started punch his shield he manifested with his water bearer. Recovering from being attacked earlier, Superboy jumped over towards Blockbuster as he hammered away at his side, causing him to release Aqualad. Jumping up, Superboy wrapped his arms around Blockbuster to choke him, only for him to grab him and slam him into another pillar. On his glove, Robin saw the pillar fall on the structure as it showed the damage that could be done as he showed it to Kid Flash and 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻. Robin, got it. 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻/Kid Flash, got it. The two nodded as they raced off towards Blockbuster. Sharing looks, 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻 nodded at Kid Flash as he agreed the motion as he raced towards Blockbuster as he landed a hit across his face only to see that some of the skin on his face to his nose was on his hand. Kid Flash, got your nose. He joked. Angrily, Blockbuster roared as he threw Superboy to the ground as he charged after him. As Superboy and 𝐴𝐴 recovered, the two were about to charge after him until Robin called them over. Robin, Superboy, 𝐴𝐴. After running around, Kid Flash ran over towards a pillar. Kid Flash, come and get me, you incredible bulk. He taunted as Blockbuster roared as he slammed his fist into the pillar, completely destroying it as Kid Flash ran away only for a piece of it to hit his back as he stumbled. Just as Blockbuster was about to punch, his strands of black WHP wrapped around his arm as he looked back to see that 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻 pulled himself towards him as he kicked him across the jaw. 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻, I'm over here, he said, sliding across the floor as he used black WHP to send his fist towards another pillar as he destroyed it. As he did, Robin showed the pillar structures to 𝐴𝐴 and Superboy as they got what he was saying. Robin, this one and that one. He pointed out as the two nodded and went to destroy the other two pillars as the building began to shake even more. As Kid Flash stood by a pillar, Blockbuster attempted to punch him only for him to dodge as he destroyed it. Kid Flash, sorry. Try again. He rambled as Blockbuster roared in anger as he chased him. In the center of the floor, Robin drew a X in chalk. Once he was done, 𝐴𝐴 used his water bearers to cover the chalk in water. As he did, Kid Flash came racing over towards the spot they marked as he slid across the water, causing it spread out wider. Running towards him, Blockbuster roared only for a flash of green light to pass overhead him. He shouted, slamming his fist across the top of his head as he was sent to the ground hard with a booming impact, causing the water to splash over his body. 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻, stay down, he told him as he used black WHP to wrap around his arms as Blockbuster roared, sitting up with his legs. Just when he was about to stand, 𝐴𝐴 used his bioelectricity to shock the water as Blockbuster screamed in pain. He shouted as he activated the rest of his exploding disc he planted on the remaining pillars as they were rigged to explode. Upon counting down, the disc exploded as the entire building was starting to come down. As the five ran away, the building was starting to come down on top of them as Superboy covered Robin and 𝐴𝐴 covered Kid Flash. Quickly, 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻 moved his hands into the air as he manipulated black WHP to form a form over them as it protected them from being crushed. Once all of the destruction had settled, the debris over them slowly began to move as 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻, 𝐴𝐴, and Superboy moved it off of them. As they all stood up, they looked around them at the chaos and destruction caused during their fight. With their suits damaged and torn, the Dove were like injured battle heroes in line. Did it? He said in between breaths as Robin and Kid Flash stood as they were collecting their breath as well. Robin, was there ever any doubt? He said as the two high-fived each other only to wince at the sounds of their ribs popping. Walking over towards the unconscious Blockbuster, Superboy looked at him as he felt a hand on his shoulder to look back and see 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻 with half of his cowl torn, revealing half of his face. Kid Flash, see, he says, calling out to him as they look back to see the three pointing towards the large ball of illuminating light in the sky called the moon. Kid Flash, the moon, he says as they all look towards the moon as Superboy was awestruck by it. Seeing it in person for the first time was amazing, but that's not all he saw. In front of the moon, a shadow stuck out that caught his attention. Coming closer, the shadow was shown to be the boy in blue and red himself. Superman. Kid Flash, oh, and Superman. Do we keep our promises or what? 𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻, no. It's all just coincidence, they said as from behind Superman other members of the League had came. Red Tornado, Shazam, Zatara, Martian Manhunter, Captain Atom, Hawkman, Hawkwoman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern Hal Jordan, Batman, Aquaman, Black Canary, Green Arrow, Green Lantern John Stewart, and the Flash. With all members of the League present and accounted for. The four as well as Superboy stood in front of them. As Superman stared at the five, Superboy stepped up as the four made for him. Catching his attention, Superboy fixed up his torn suit to reveal the symbol that was the same as his. Seeing this brought shock and confusion to the League and even Superman himself. "Batman, is that what I think it is?" he questioned Superman. "Kid Flash, he doesn't like being called in it," he said as Superboy grew frustrated as he stepped up. "Superboy, I am Superman's clone," he stated as everyone was surprised by what was just told as Batman, who looked even seriously than before. "Batman, start talking," he told them. After being explained the entire situation and Green Lantern John Stewart, Hawkman, Hawkwoman, Captain Atom skirted Blockbuster. Still on the ground, Robin, Kid Flash, 𝐸𝐻𝐼, Aqualad, and Superboy remained as they waited for what their mentors had to say about their little escapade as they talked with Guardian. Behind them, Superboy watched as Superman was having a private conversation with Martian Manhunter and Wonder Woman. Sharing a look, the two seemed to have confused with each being the same person. But from Superboy's standpoint, it seemed as if Superman was disgusted with him. He only wanted to meet the person he was created after, but he only looked away from him as if he couldn't be bothered to look at him. After a while, Superman walked over towards him after having a conversation. "Superman, size, we'll figure something out for you. The League will, for now, I'd better make sure they get that Blockbuster creature squared away," he told him as he flew off, leaving the others to watch from behind. "Batman, Cadmus will be investigated all 52 levels. He says coming over as well with Flash, Aquaman, and Green Lantern. Batman, but let's make one thing clear. Flash, you should have called. Batman, and results aside, we are not happy. You hacked Justice League systems, disobeyed direct orders, and endangered lives. You will not be doing this again," he says directly to them as 𝐸𝐻𝐼 was in deep thought. The events that took place today were justice and right. Something he had always dreamed of doing since he was a kid. Something he always envisioned himself being. Being a hero felt second nature to him, and it wasn't something that he'd easily let go. 𝐸𝐻𝐼, Batman, I'm sorry, but we're going to continue doing this. Green Lantern, 𝐸𝐻𝐼, you have to hear us out, he said as the others walked up behind him. 𝐸𝐻𝐼, today, we were congratulated for all the hard work we've ever done by you all sides. Today we were going to level up from being normal sidekicks to being official heroes like you. To save the day, stop crime, and allow others to continue living their life like they normally would. Just like now. We stopped Cadmus and revealed what they have been secretly doing underground and brought it to light. For if we hadn't, Superboy would have still been locked up inside of his pod and used like a weapon. He stated as Superboy nodded, understanding what his friend was doing for him and the others. Aqualad, we did good work here. Together, on our own, we forged something powerful. Flash, if this is about your treatment at the hall, the three of you, Kid Flash, the five of us. And it's not, he declared, stepping up. Robin, Batman, we're ready to use what you taught us, or why teach us at all? Superboy, why let them tell us what to do? He questioned, unfolding his arms as he stepped up from behind the group. Superboy, it's simple. Get on board or get out of the way, he stated as he and the others looked seriously with intention as Batman looked back with the same intention. Mount Justice, July 8th, 8:04 Eastern Daylight Time. After waiting for approval from Batman, the team waited a day before coming to a large mountain that used to be the League's old headquarters. Inside, members of the League were moving heavy machinery around inside of the base. Batman, this cave was the original secret sanctuary of the Justice League. We're calling it into service again, he said, standing in front of the team in their civilian clothes. Standing in the room, the five looked around inside of the cave as they stood on a platform with members of the League. Batman, since you five are determined to stay together and fight the good fight, you'll do it on League terms, he said as he then turned towards the members of the League who were there. Batman, Red Tornado volunteered to live here and be your supervisor. Black Canary's in charge of training. I will deploy you on missions. Robin, real missions. Batman, yes, but covert, he said. Flash, the League will still handle the obvious stuff. There's a reason we have these big targets on our chests. Aquaman, but Cadmus proves the bad guys are getting smarter. Batman needs a team that can operate on the sly. Batman, the 6 of you will be that team. 6. He said, realizing what he meant as Batman signaled behind them as they turned to see Martian Manhunter, a female Martian, walking out with him. Batman, this is the Martian Manhunter's niece, Miss Martian. Miss Martian, hi. She greeted as the others took a liking to the new addition to the team. Wally, liking this gig more every minute. He said to Robin as he smiled, knowing what he meant. Wally, welcome aboard. I'm Kid Flash. That's Robin, Deku, 𝐻𝗚𝗓𝗏. It's cool if you forget their names. Miss Martian, I'm honored to be included, she said as the 4 walked over as Superboy remained behind them. Robin, hey, Superboy. Come meet Miss M. He called him over as Superboy walked over towards them. As Miss Martian saw the color of his shirt, she changed her clothing to match the same color of black and red. Miss Martian, I like your t-shirt. She complimented him as Superboy smiled softly as Kid Flash nudged his shoulder and Robin came over to lay his arm on his shoulder to calm him before he reacted. Looking at the group, Izuku felt a sense of familiarity seeing them, as if he felt happier than he was about this. Looking at 𝐻𝗚𝗏, he saw he had the same smile as the two. Nodded. 𝐻𝗚𝗏, today is the day. Back in Cadmus underneath the ground in the laboratory floor, Guardian sat in a chair as the female scientist from earlier and WX stood in the room with him. Guardian, Cadmus changes today. With Desmond out of the picture, the boards placed me in charge, he said, looking towards the scientist. Guardian, Dr. Spence, you're acting chief scientist. No more genomes suppressing our wills. No more secret breeding projects. This is a kinder, gentler Cadmus. WX, then I will of course help in any way I can, brother. They all said as they were being watched from behind a TV screen in a room with other screens with white pixels on them. Being watched by the light. Light number 4. Can the light afford to leave Guardian in charge without the genomes? Light number 5. We have subtler means of control. What concerns me is the children, he said as on the screen an image of the 5 running through the hall came up. Light number 4. We now know the League is willing to employ young heroes to do their dirty work. That's a dark twist. Light number 1. Yes, but one that can be played to our advantage. Even the temporary loss of the weapon may prove useful, he says, looking at Deku as he paid more detail to him. Seeing the faint arcs of his power traveling around his legs and black W flowing from his hands. Light number 1. Eventually everyone sees the light. Star City, July 17, 2315. On a night at the docks of Star City, a group of men were out on the shipyard as they were searching for a shipment. Finding the container that contained the shipment they were looking for, 2 men from the group pulled out the shipment from the shipment only for an arrow to land at their feet as it exploded, causing them to fall and drop it. Sliding out of the shipment was a gun that a big man picked up. The man had dark skin, gray hair tied into a braid going to the back of his head and wearing a brown professional suit as he loaded the gun and aimed it where the arrow came from. Looking above on top of the steel crane stood Speedy as he looked down the man. You again. I'm starting to get insulted. Green arrows not messing up my operations personally, he said, pulling the trigger as a blaster energy shot out from the gun towards Speedy as he jumped down and maneuvered being shot. As he got down on the steel grail, he ran as he pulled out an arrow and shot it into the gun barrel, causing the gun to explode as it ripped apart his suit due to the backlash. Do you know what I pay for a suit in my size? Scorch the earth, boys, he told his men as they were about to fire at Speedy if it wasn't for a yellow and red blue taking some of them down. From behind, 2 birdarangs knocked a gun out of their hands. Swinging above them, Robin landed on top of another shipment container as 𝐻𝗚𝗏 jumped down on top the same one he got on. As he landed, he pulled out his water bearers as he got down and used his water WHPS to attack the armed men. Seeing as his men were being taken down, the big man stuck his fingers into the ground as he lifted up a large chunk of earth. Looking towards Speedy, he saw him running as he threw the rock his way only for black WHP to come out from the air and wrap around the rock as Deku came flying down as he sent it flying right back at him. He groaned as he looked up to see Speedy shoot an exploding arrow his way as it exploded, pushing him back. Seeing this, he grabbed another chunk of earth out of the ground as he threw it towards him, only for 𝐻𝐻𝐼 to land in front of Speedy as he used black WHP to rip it apart as the others landed beside them. With that, Speedy shot another arrow at the man, causing a smoke screen that bought them time to discuss. 𝐴𝐴, the cave is perfect. 𝐻𝐻𝐼, it has everything the team will need. Robin, for covert missions, like spy stuff. Kid Flash, and wait till you see Superboy and Miss M. But I saw her first. They all said to him as they looked back down toward the ground to see that the man recovered. As he lifted a piece of the earth out of the ground, he threw it towards them. Quickly, 𝐻𝐻𝐼 smashed the back of his foot against the rock as it was reduced to pieces as they split. As Speedy got some ground, he shot 3 arrows at the man as they exploded, bring the man to one knee as he slowly recovered. Tell Arrow he shouldn't send boys to do a man's job. He taunted as Speedy pulled an arrow back on his bow. Laughing, the man stood with his arms out like a cross. Go ahead. Take the shot, he said as Speedy shot the arrow at him as it hit the man's chest, causing red foam to flow from the arrowhead as it covered over him. Slowly the foam began to harden as the man was now trapped and rendered unmoving. Racing over towards him, Kid Flash stood on the edge of the container as he watched the man stuck in the foam. Kid Flash, high-density polyurethane foam, he said as Speedy turned around only to see 𝐻𝐻𝐼 standing with his arms folded as he looked at him. 𝐻𝐻𝐼, we're a team now and we got our own base. It would be nice to have the best archer we know back with us, he told him as Speedy only looked at him before walking past him as 𝐻𝐻𝐼 refrained from looking back. Speedy, pass, he said, stopping as he looked over his shoulder at the others. Speedy, I'm done letting Arrow and the League tell me what to do. I don't need a babysitter or a clubhouse to hang out with the other kids. Your Junior Justice League is a joke, something to keep you busy and in your place, he said as he then looked towards 𝐻𝐻𝐼, who looked over his shoulder. Speedy, I don't want any part of it. And quit the stupid righteous act. You make yourself look ridiculous, he told him as he walked off into the shadows of the shipyard as 𝐻𝐻𝐼 was left to wonder how he really felt about him. Intro Aqualad grabbed his water bearers as his tattoos glowed as he stares into the abyss. Robin landed on a perch as he stared into Gotham. Kid Flash crouched down as he grabbed his goggles before pulling them over his eyes. 𝐻𝐻𝐼 landed on the ground with a smile graced upon his face as he charged his power with green static bouncing off of him. Superboy floated above Happy Harbor as he stared out into the skies. Ms. Martian flew back into the midnight sky as the moon reflected behind her. Artemis pulled back her arrow as she concentrated on her target, as she then released it. Flashes of the team were then shown as they were standing in the training center with Batman, Red Tornado, and Black Canary in front of them discussing their mission. Another flash then showed a clip of Superboy and Robin jumping up out of a cargo plane, as another showed 𝐻𝐻𝐼 and Aqualad hid behind a table. Another showed Ms. Martian using her physic abilities to tear apart a plane, as another showed Robin standing up with Artemis standing behind him. Another one then showed Kid Flash running with 𝐻𝐻𝐼 not too far behind him. Another one showed Robin and Superboy behind a crate ducking incoming fire as he then threw a batarang towards the enemy. Then the final one showed the entire team standing in front of a huge explosion. In a burst of flashes it showed Speedy standing on a rail, a man shooting a gun, Red Tornado flying down, Izuku writing in a notebook, a red android with a tan scarf, Miss Martian preparing to fight a twister in the middle of a parking lot, Izuku wrapping the team in black WHP with a serious look on his face. The team then turns around to stare out to the fourth wall. Young Justice intro over Mount Justice, July 18th, 11:16 Eastern Daylight Time. Inside the cave, the Zeta beam scanners began picking up information on who was coming through. Computer, recognized. Robin, B0 hit Flash, B0. It recognized as the Zeta tubes powered up as the two came out. As they stepped into the cave, they ran towards the rest of the group on the platform. Wally, did you ask him? Robin, is he coming? The two asked as Izuku stood in front of the screen with his book bag on his back as he monitored the screen, watching as the signal for Red Tornado was heading towards the cave. Izuku, he's here. Wally, then what are we waiting for? He said with a smile as the others nodded. Racing outside to the back of the cave, they walked out to greet Red Tornado. In the air, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 was flying down towards the ground as his lower half stopped spinning as the air ceased around him. 𝗏𝗏, 𝗏𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, greetings. Is there a reason you intercept me outside the cave? 𝗏𝗏𝗏, we hoped you had a mission for us, he said as they all stood in front of him. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, mission assignments are the Batman's responsibility. Robin, but it's been over a week and nothing. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, you'll be tested soon enough. For the time being, simply enjoy each other's company. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, this team is not a social club, he stated looking at the android. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, no, but I am told social interaction is an important team-building exercise. Perhaps you can keep busy by familiarizing yourself with the cave, he says as he walks off, leaving the others to stay behind as they watched with disbelief. 𝗏𝗏, keep busy. Robin, does he think we're falling for this? Miss Martian, I'll find out, she says as she turns towards 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and focuses as she tried to read his mind. Computer, recognized. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, the cave scanned him as she stopped trying to attempt reading his mind. Miss Martian, I'm sorry. I forgot, he's a machine, inorganic. I cannot read his mind. 𝗏𝗏, it's okay. Nice try though. So, you know what I'm thinking right now. Izuku, I'm pretty sure we all know what you're thinking, he said, chopping his head as 𝗏𝗏 winced at being hit as he rubbed his head. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, and now we tour the clubhouse. Miss Martian, well, Superboy and I live here. We can play tour guides, she says, turning back to look at him as so does everyone else. Superboy, don't look at me. 𝗏𝗏, we won't. Private tour sounds better. Robin, she didn't say anything about a private tour. Izuku, we'll all go, he says as everyone looks at him as he stood holding his bag on his back. Izuku, this can count as a team-building exercise. We all know who each other are, but for Miss Martian and Superboy, this is their first time being on Earth, he says as everyone was okay with the idea as Miss Martian lead the group back to the inside of the cave. Miss Martian, well, this would be our front door, and to this would be the back, she said, leading them through the back of the mountain as they walked back into the water bay area. Miss Martian, the cave is actually the entire mountain. Izuku, it was hollowed out and reinforced by Superman and Green Lantern in the early days of the League. Superboy, so why abandon it for the Hall of Justice? 𝗏𝗏𝗏, the cave's secret location was compromised, he told him. Superboy, so they traded it in for a tourist trap. Yeah, that makes sense, he said sarcastically. Miss Martian, if villains know of the cave, we must be on constant alert. Robin, the bad guys know they know about the place, so they'd never think to look here, he said, grabbing her hand reassuringly as 𝗏𝗏 came over and took her hand from his. 𝗏𝗏, he means we're hiding in plain sight. Miss Martian, that's much clearer, she says, grabbing her head as Superboy sniffed the air as he smelled smoke. Superboy, I smell smoke. Miss Martian, my cookies, she says, alarmed as she levitated from the floor as she flew down the hall towards the kitchen. Upon making it there, she saw smoke rising from the oven as she used her telekinesis to open the oven door and lift the tray from inside as she placed it down on top of the stove. Once she did, the group arrived into the kitchen to see the burned cookies. She then sat on top of the table as they stared at them. Miss Martian, I was trying out Grammy Jones' recipe from episode 17 of Never mind. Robin, I bet they tasted great. Munch. Robin, he doesn't seem to mind, he pointed out as they looked over to see 𝗏𝗏 standing by 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Izuku as he was eating one of the burned cookies that she had made. 𝗏𝗏, I have a serious metabolism, he says as Miss Martian just watched as he finished them. Miss Martian, I'll make more. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, it was sweet of you to make any. Miss Martian, thanks, 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Calder, please, we are off duty. Call me Caldering. Actually, my friends call me Calder. 𝗏𝗏, you can call me 𝗏𝗏. See, I already trust you with my secret ID. Unlike Mr. Dark Glasses over here. Batman Forbidden Boy Wonder from revealing his secret identity. Ouch. He groaned as Izuku hit him upside his head. Izuku, doesn't mean you can boast about it. Miss Martian, you can call me Izuku. But if it's fine, sometimes people call me Liam. It's okay if you wish to or not. Miss Martian, I think Izuku is just fine. Besides, mine's no secret. It's 𝐻𝐿𝐵, but you can call me Megan. It's an Earth name, and I'm on Earth now. She said as she watched as Superboy walked away uninterested by the topic of names as she read his mind. 𝐻𝐿, it's okay, Superboy. She said to him telepathically as Superboy suddenly was enraged as he got flashbacks of the Giganomes being in his mind as he stared at her. 𝐻𝐿, we'll think of you an Earth name too. Superboy, get out of my head. 𝐻𝐿, what's wrong? She said looking out towards the others as they heard her voice in their head as her voice was too loud. 𝐻𝐿, I don't understand. Everyone on Mars communicates telepathically. Izuku, 𝐻𝐿, stop. You're not on Mars anymore, you're on Earth. Using your abilities to read into the minds of others without their permission is an invasion of privacy. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, besides, Cadmus's creepy genomes left a bad taste in his brain. They told her as she thought about what she had done. 𝐻𝐿, I didn't mean to, Superboy, just stay out of our heads. He says as he walks away angrily, leaving 𝐻𝐿 to think about what she done, and a way to fix it. With a thought, she smiled at an idea that could fix the problem she created. 𝐻𝐿, hello Megan. I know what we can do. She says excitedly as she levitates from off the floor and flies out of the room. Seeing that she had left, the guys thought what it was that she thought of and decided to follow her. Refraining to move, Superboy sat on the couch still mad about earlier but at himself from acting out like that. Flying back into the room, 𝐻𝐿 peered around the corner of the hall as she looked at Superboy. 𝐻𝐿, Superboy please. Superboy, leave me alone. He said back to her as she held her head down sadly. Seeing that she was sad from his comment, he sighed as he got up and walked towards her as she smiled giddily as she flew down the hall as Superboy followed. Following her back to the water bay, they all stood in front of what seemed like some sphere that levitated from off of the ground. Seeing this piqued Izuku's interest as he gladly sketched away in his notebook as he drew the object as he was analyzing it. Turning around, they saw her flying towards them as Superboy walked behind her. Izuku, hey, 𝐻𝐿, if you don't mind me asking. What is this? 𝐻𝐿, it's my Martian bioship. Causing him and the others to look up at her confusedly. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, cute. Not aerodynamic, but cute. 𝐻𝐿, it's at rest, silly. Awake it, she said, extending her out towards the sphere as it suddenly started to shift. Watching in amazement, the group watched as the sphere became a ship as it floated from the ground and turned around as the back door to ship opened for them. As she walked forward, she stopped as she saw the others were still amazed by it as Izuku was scribbling away into his notebook at what seemed like lightning-fast speed. 𝐻𝐿, well, are you coming? She asked as he looked up from his notebook as he closed to smile while looking at the ship with amazement. Izuku, we're coming. Just trying to grasp the idea of seeing and being on an alien ship, he said as he led the group behind 𝐻𝐿 as they walked onto the ship. Getting inside of the ship, they stood in the center as they saw the inside of the ship manifest chairs for them to seat in as well as a control center and desk inside of the ship. Smiling, Robin and 𝐬𝐿𝐼 ran to their seats as Izuku was scribbling away at what he witnessed. 𝐻𝐿, strap in for launch. She told them as she walked past him to sit in her seat as the other three sat down in their seats as the ship instantly strapped them in. Robin, whoa. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, so cool. The two said as 𝐻𝐿 sat down in her seat as the ship brought up the ship's control for her as she looked towards the communication device in the ship. 𝐻𝐿, Red Tornado, please open the bay doors. She said to him as the doors opened as she piloted the ship to fly through the bay entrance as they flew to the skies. Flying above land, the group was able to look out through the window to see the town and the cave below them. Robin, incredible. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, she sure is. He complimented 𝐻𝐿 as he realized what he said as she looked at him curiously. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, I meant the ship which, like all ships, is a she. Robin, fast with his feet, not so much with his mouth. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, dude. The two taunted each other as they were talking over 𝐻𝐿, but while they were, Superboy remained silent the entire time as his two friends saw this. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, we may not have psychic power, but I can guess what you're thinking. You overreacted, and you don't know how to apologize. Izuku, that's okay. I mean, this is your first time interacting with another person that isn't from Cadmus. All you have to do is just say sorry, but with a smile so that she knows you mean it. The two told him as he thought about what to do next thanks to the advice from his friends. From behind them 𝐻𝐿 watched as they talked with him as she still felt bad for what she did earlier. Robin, he'll come around, he said to her, noticing her worried expression. 𝐻𝐿, he hasn't seemed to like me much. Wally, you guys remember he has super hearing, right? He reminded them as they looked towards him to see he didn't react to them talking. Robin, hey, how about showing us a little Martian shapeshifting? He recommended as 𝐻𝐿 stood up, proposing the idea as the others turned around to watch. Slowly she transformed into a female version of Robin as he was impressed. Looking toward Wally, she twirled around as he shifted to a female version of him. Looking at her transformation, he blushed. Wally, is it wrong that I think I'm hot? Izuku, yes. He rebutted, writing in his notebook as 𝐻𝐿 looked towards him before changing her appearance again to look like him, but in a pose with her left hand on her hip and her right hand in the air. As Izuku had leaned his head up to look at her from his notebook, he looked conflicted. 𝐻𝐿, Izuku, are you okay? Izuku, yeah, I'm fine, it's just that I thought I was having a sorta deja vu. Robin, well, with all questions to the side, that was impressive, but you know you're not gonna fool anyone with those. 𝐻𝐿, mimicking boys are a lot harder, she said as she changed her appearance back to her regular self. 𝐴𝐴, and your clothes? 𝐻𝐿, they're like the ship, organic. They respond to my mental command. Superboy, as long as they're the only ones, he said as 𝐻𝐿 looked down. Wally, can you do that ghosting through walls thing that Manhunter does? 𝐻𝐿, density shifting. It's a very advanced technique. Robin, Flash can vibrate his molecules right through a wall, he said as he grew embarrassed as he said that in front of 𝐻𝐿. Wally, dude. Robin, when he tries it, bloody nose. Wally, dude. 𝐻𝐿, hee, well, here's something I can do. Camouflage mode, she said, shifting the ship into camouflage mode as it became invisible in the air. While flying, the group suddenly got an incoming transmission from Red Tornado. Red Tornado to Miss Martian. An emergency alert has been triggered at the Happy Harbor power plant. I suggest you investigate covertly. I'm sending coordinates, he told them as the ship pinged the location. 𝐻𝐿, received. Adjusting course. Izuku, looks like we're in business. Robin, TSK, tornadoes keeping us busy again. 𝐻𝐿, well, a simple fire led you to Superboy, she said as the ship flew over the power plant as it was going to the ground to descend. 𝐻𝐿, we should find out what caused the alert, she said to the group as Superboy spotted something outside the window. Superboy, I think I know the cause, he pointed out as they all looked towards the window to see an incoming twister heading towards the ship fast as it hit them into its wind. Trapped inside, the ship was knocked out of camouflage mode as it was sent into a twirl, being knocked around by the wind. Inside, the group were hanging on to dear life as 𝐻𝐿 focused on the ship as she piloted out of the twister and was able to land them in the parking lot. Upon descending, the cargo bay opened as the group fell out to the ground. To conceal his identity, Izuku placed on his cowl as he pulled out his gloves from inside his book bag as he sat it down inside. Looking ahead, they saw the twister roaming around the power plant as the people who were inside ran out to safety. Izuku, we need to find out what happened and how that twister got here. 𝐴𝐴, Robin, do you know anything about tornadoes being common to New England? He asked as the group looked towards where the boy wonder was, only to see that he disappeared. 𝐴𝐴, Robin. Hearing the sounds of explosion ripping from inside the power plant as the windows shattered, the group assumed he was already inside as they raced towards the building. Inside, Robin was fighting some kind of machine that blasted high-pressure winds from his hands as it knocked him away to a steel beam as he fell to the ground. Racing inside, the group saw him on the ground as Superboy jumped from the stairs as he landed beside him. Superboy, who's your new friend? Robin, didn't catch his name, but he plays kinda rough, he told him as he leapt off toward him as high-pressure wind blew against the ground, kicking up swirls of air against his gauntlets. My apologies. You may address me as Mr. Twister. he says beneath his cloak wrapped around his neck as he reeled his arms back before moving them forward to the ground, blowing wind to the ground as 2 vacuums of air blew against Superboy as he tried rushing towards him. Seeing as he was resisting the push of the air, Mr. Twister blasted another torrent of air at him as he was sent flying in the air, caught in a small twister. Superboy, whoa! He screamed out as he was sent slamming into the wall nearby the group as he fell. Concerned, 𝐻𝐭 looked to the group to see that they were prepared to fight. As she shared a look with Izuku as he nodded to her. Stirring her emotions, she prepared herself as she stood with the group as Robin stood up from the ground. Taking the initiative, the group ran forward to attack as Robin stood behind. Rushing ahead, Kid Flash gained momentum as he used his speed to move himself forward as he flipped on his hand and attempted to double-kick him, only for Mr. Twister to shield himself with air as he locked his feet in an airlock as he sent him flying outside of the building as he rolled alongst the ground. Turning around, he saw 𝐻𝐭 and 𝐀𝐮𝐿 racing towards him as he blasted wind below them, sending them away. In the way, Izuku hopped over them as he shot compressed air bullets from his gloves at Mr. Twister as he used his air to nullify them as he sent a torrent at Izuku, blasting him back as he landed on his feet. Mr. Twister, I was prepared to be challenged by a superhero. I was not, however, expecting children. He monologued as Robin pulled out one of his exploding discs from his belt beneath his jacket. Robin, we're not children. He shouted, throwing the disc as it stabbed into his armor as he looked down and flicked it away as it exploded away from him. Mr. Twister, objectively you are. Have you no adult supervision? I find your presence here quite disturbing. Robin, well, we hate to see you disturbed. Let's see if you're more disturbed once we kick your can. He rebutted as the group had recovered as they stood behind him. Stepping forward, 𝐻𝐭 used her telekinesis to pull down a steam pipe as a blast full of steam poured down on him. Set up as a distraction, Superboy jumped towards him as he intended to smash him down to the floor, only for Twister to counter by blowing him away against a steel beam. As he fell down and onto the floor, he ended up crashing against 𝐻𝐭 as they bounced along the ground. Robin and 𝐀𝐮𝐿 jumped over them as they raced towards Twister as Izuku wasn't too far behind. Seeing them coming, Twister slammed his hand on the ground as high-pressurized air blew against the two as they were sent twirling into a spiral as they slammed into each other. Jumping over them, Izuku landed on the ground as he focused his power in his fist at 15%. Izuku, slamming his fist to his chest, he noticed that air circled around his hand, blocking his attack. Mr. Twister, impudent and unrelenting. You did your best, or whatever you tried to do, he said, pushing him back as Izuku was sent rolling along the ground as he was sent slamming into the wall as bricks fell down on top of him. Mr. Twister, indeed. That was quite disturbing. Thank you, he said, levitating off of the ground as he flew away from inside as the others slowly recovered. After being sent on a roller coaster of a turmoil outside, Wally recovered from being hurled into the ground as he looked up to see Mr. Twister. Quickly he raced towards him as he attacked him as he slid back. Wally, what did you do with my team? Mr. Twister utterly embarrassed them, largely, he said, putting both of his hands forward, creating a tornado that caught Wally as he was sent spiraling towards the building. Wally, he shouted as he crashed into the building as dust clouded where he was. As the dust began to settle, Wally found himself levitating above the ground. 𝐻𝐭, I got you, Wally, she told him as she safely landed him on the ground as the others walked out from behind the building. Wally, thanks, he said as they all stood together. Mr. Twister, I would have thought you had all learned your limitations by now. 𝐀𝐿DR, what do you want? Mr. Twister, isn't it obvious? I'm waiting for a real hero, he said, emphasizing real, as they started to grow frustrated as 𝐀𝐿DR looked back to 𝐻𝐭. 𝐀𝐿DR, read his mind. Find a weakness. 𝐻𝐭, I thought I wasn't supposed to do that. Robin, it's okay to do it with the bad guys, he told her as she glanced at Izuku as he nodded, reassuring her. Looking towards Mr. Twister, she used her telekinesis to try and read his mind. 𝐻𝐭, nothing. I'm getting nothing. It's almost as if. Hello, Megan. Mr. Twister is Red Tornado in disguise. He's inorganic, an android. And how many androids do you know that can generate tornadoes? She told them as they all believed that Mr. Twister was actually Red Tornado. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, Red Tornado sent us here. Robin, after saying we'd be tested soon enough. This is his test, something to keep us busy. Wally, Speedy called it. We're a joke. They all said infuriated as they were mad. But as they were, all but one found it suspicious. Izuku, that's impossible. That android couldn't possibly be Red Tornado. During the fight I noticed that he didn't use his arms or legs like Red Tornado usually does and rotate at a 180-degree spin 𝐶𝐻𝐶L. When Tornado uses his natural element, the color of his winds are red and not original. And the difference between the two is that Twister can generate air, but Tornado can only use the air that surrounds him. Meaning, he thought as he looked forward to seeing the team going to confront him. Izuku, that's not Tornado. As the group stood within range of Mr. Twister, he looked down at them. Robin, we know who you are and what you want. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, so, let's end this. Mr. Twister, consider it ended. He says as he began to conjure a powerful storm behind him as lightning and powerful winds began to blow from around him. 𝐀𝐻𝐿DR, we will not indulge you. We will not engage. He said as lightning began to crack and cackle around his hands as powerful winds blew around him and down towards the ground to them as the others grew concerned at his power. Wally, can Red Tornado do that? Mr. Twister, you think I'm Tornado? Ironic. Izuku, guys look out. That's not. Before he could warn them, a bolt of lightning struck down before them, sending them flying away as the ground exploded before them. Amongst them Superboy withstood the attack as he stood up from the ground and leapt towards him high into the air. Lifting his hands, Twister shot 2 bolts of lightning at him as he was sent hurtling back down to the ground. As he lowered down with lightning circling in his hands, 𝐴𝐻𝐿DR recovered as she psychically linked with the bioship and piloted it to fly over them as it was in camouflage mode to hide them. Mr. Twister, fine then. I won't deny you children have power, but playing hide and seek with you would not help me achieve my objectives. So stay concealed. He said as the others slowly began to recover as they all saw that the bioship was over them, projecting them to be invisible to his eyes. Mr. Twister, if you confront me again, I will show no mercy. He threatened as he turned around and flew off as 𝐴𝐻𝐿DR removed the ship from over them as it decloaked. Wally, what happened? 𝐴𝐻𝐿DR, I placed the bioship between us. Superboy. He grunted, destroying the ground in a fit of anger as he glared at 𝐴𝐻𝐿DR. Superboy, and that was supposed to make it right. You tricked us into thinking Twister was Red Tornado. 𝐀𝐿DR, she didn't do it on purpose. Robin, it was a rookie mistake. We shouldn't have listened. They said as Izuku listened in as he took off his cowl and looked at the team with disappointment from what they were saying. Wally, you are pretty inexperienced. Hit the showers, we'll take it from here. Superboy, and stay out of our way. He said to her as she had a sad expression on her face as Superboy had turned to leave and was about to jump away only for a strand of black WE to wrap around his wrist. Turning around, he looked to see that Izuku had a strand around all of their wrist holding them together. Superboy, what are you doing? Izuku, keeping us from making another mistake. He said, walking over towards 𝐴𝐻𝐿DR as he held his hand out for her to take as she blushed. Taking his hand, she stood up as he looked back towards the others. Izuku, you guys really think that you can point the blame on 𝐴𝐻𝐿DR since this was her first time in an actual battle and for a miscorrection that she made off the common knowledge she had after being on Earth for what, a few days? How careless can you all be? He said, causing them to look at the ground, knowing that he was telling the truth. Izuku, don't look at the ground, we do enough of that as we already do. The first mistake we made was going in without a plan of action. We went in, saw a target, and we attacked like mindless warriors in which we are not. That android said that he was waiting for real heroes to face him, and we weren't acting like real heroes. We were acting like kids. Our mentors didn't teach us to go into battle like that. I'd expect only for Superboy and 𝐴𝐻𝐿DR to mess up, but not us. If we're going to stop Mr. Twister from destroying the town, then we need to get our heads together and do this right. Be the real heroes he wants to face and beat him down to the point he won't ever show his face again. He said as they were in disbelief at first from what they did, but after the pep talk from Izuku. Their determination to fix their problems and correct their mistakes fueled them to want to do better. Robin, you're right. We really did mess up, but we needed the pep talk feeling a little pumped up, he said as the others agreed as he released his hold on them as he retracted black WHP. Izuku, all right then. Robin, so what's the plan? He asked as the other grouped around as Izuku smiled confidently. Izuku, well, this is the plan that I was thinking of. Meanwhile, I'm Happy Harbor Mr. Twister creating large twisters destroying the nearby cars and causing people to run away afraid. Mr. Twister, certainly, this will get the required attention that I need. Wally, you got ours. He shouted running towards him at full speed. Wally, full and undivided. Jumping forward, he front-flipped placing both of his feet forward as he double-kicked him back as he slid along the ground. Mr. Twister, immaterial and insufficient. You are a distraction I can no longer tolerate. Superboy, Ari. He roared coming down as Mr. Twister dodged the attack by evading as he slammed into the ground. Standing a few feet away from them, he moved his hand forward sending a blast of wind their direction. While they were 𝐴𝐻𝐿 was flying the bio ship back to the cave. While she was inside of the ship she was in contact with Red Tornado informing him about the new android that appeared. 𝐴𝐻𝐿, we could really use your help. Red Tornado, if I were to intervene it would not be to help. Still, it is an odd coincidence that this Twister shares my elemental ability, as well as my immunity to telepathy. He said as 𝐴𝐻𝐿 thought about what he had said as a solution had came to her mind. One that she remembered Izuku saying and matching correctly with what was just told to her. 𝐴𝐻𝐿, hello Megan. Back at the harbor, Robin and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 ran upside a car as they leapt towards Mr. Twister to attack him. Seeing them coming he blasted a torrent of wind to the ground that formed a small tornado as Izuku came running around the car as he shot a strand of black WHP around 𝐀𝐮𝐿's waist as he threw him towards him. Getting close, 𝐀𝐮𝐿 landed a hit onto his helmet as he slid to the ground and rolled away. But before he could get any further Mr. Twister conjured wind around his feet, lifting him into the air as he shot a blast of wind at him sending him towards a house that was near the docks. While he wasn't looking Wally ran towards him to try and kick him only to dodge Twister blasting wind at him as he had to run away. While his back was turned Izuku ran up towards him as he shot compressed air bullets at his back as he turned around and shot an air cannon from the palm of his hand at him as he dodged while the attack was sent towards the water behind him. Taking the moment to attack Robin threw bombs towards him as they exploded only for Mr. Twister to evade and maneuver around them with the help of the wind moving beneath his feet. Sensing movement in the air, he looked up to see Superboy coming down as his fist was buried into the ground. Looking up he was too late to react to Twister blowing him away into the air towards the building as he crashed down on top of 𝐀𝐿. While he did they looked up to see a boat was sent flying towards them as they braved themselves for impact only to see Izuku jump over them as he used black WHP and a bit of his telekinesis to move and lift the boat. Izuku, hey, here's your boat back. He shouted hurling the boat right back at him as it exploded giving them a break of opportunity to catch their breath. Sitting behind a car Wally watched as Robin pulled his utility belt out as he strapped it around his waist. Wally, dude, you brought your utility belt. Robin, never leave home without it. First rule Batman taught me. Wally, like never leave the bathroom without it. 𝐴𝐻𝐿, Izuku. She reached them as the group had to hold their heads at the sound of her voice echoing through their mind as it was a little painful. Izuku, 𝐴𝐻𝐿, what is it? 𝐴𝐻𝐿, Red Tornado said he wasn't coming to help but he gave me a little insight about Mr. Twister. Your conclusion was right. She told him as Izuku looked up towards the smoke to see it had blown away. Izuku, then that means he's not the real thing. 𝐴𝐻𝐿, what are we going to do? Izuku, move with plan B, he said as the others nodded as he told them what was going to happen as they charged at Mr. Twister who had recovered. But as they were wind began to blow above them as they looked to see Red Tornado approaching. Red Tornado, hit the showers boys. I was hoping you could handle this. Clearly you cannot. Robin, but we've got a plan now, he said as he landed in front of them. Red Tornado, this is not up for debate, he told them as the group turned around and walked away, leaving Red Tornado to confront Mr. Twister. Mr. Twister, I was beginning to believe you'd never show up. Red Tornado, I'm here now. He told him as he held his back as he conjured a tornado and sent it towards him as he evaded the attack and sent his own towards him in which Tornado dispatched it. Red Tornado, we are evenly matched Twister. He said conjuring another tornado as air zipped across the ground as he sent it heading towards him. Mr. Twister, no tornado. We are not. He said slamming his fist into the ground as air shout out blast the tornado upwards as earth was sent flying towards Red Tornado as he evaded the attack. By flying behind a boat that was sitting on the land, Twister sent a bolt of lightning towards it as the boat exploded sending Red Tornado to the ground as he short-circuited. Seeing that he was down, Mr. Twister levitated over towards his body as he touched the ground. Mr. Twister, remain still android. He said as he held his hand up as cables moved from the tips of his fingers towards Red Tornado's head as it connected with his inner system, processing and planting information inside of his circuitry. Mr. Twister, the reprogramming won't take long. He said as quickly, Red Tornado's hand reached up and grabbed the cables, snatching it from his head as he turned around too as his face shifted around to reveal he was actually 𝐻𝐿 in disguise. 𝐻𝐿, it might take longer than you think. Mr. Twister, no. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, oh yeah. He shouted as 𝐻𝐿 blew him back with her telekinesis as a tornado swirls behind him as it threw him away to reveal it was 𝐬𝐿𝐼. As Twister rolled along the ground, Superboy caught him as he punched his helmet, then his chest as his fist punctured his supply system as he started short-circuiting and leaking. With one final punch he sent him flying to the docks as he was submerged underwater. As he sunk to the bottom, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 swam towards him with an anchor in his hand as he slammed it into the chest of the android. Applying his bioelectricity to the anchor, he was sent flying out of the water due to an explosion caused by his system coming in contact with the water and overloading. As he flew back into the air, strands of black 𝗧𝗓𝗔 wrapped around his limbs as he was holstered into the air as Robin came jumping over the boat on the land as he threw a couple of bombs at his back as they exploded, causing him to short-circuit even more after sustaining damage. With that, Izuku ripped off his arms as he fell to the ground. Surrounding him, the group watched as the chest part of the suit opened up as a man with brown hair and blue eyes wearing a green jumpsuit. Engineer, foul. I call foul. The man said, frightening as the group looked at him confusedly as 𝐻𝐿 raised her hand towards a rock that was sitting away from them. Using her telekinesis, she lifted the ground from the ground and raised it above the man as the other thought about what she was about to do. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Before they could stop her, strands of black 𝗧𝗓𝗔 held them back as she brought down the rock on top of the man. After crushing the man with the rock, Izuku retracted the strands as Robin pushed his chest. Robin, what's the matter with you? How could you let her do that? This was your plan. Izuku, look. He told him as 𝐻𝐿 lifted the rock to reveal nothing but circuits and pieces of metal as the man was nothing more than a robot. 𝐻𝐿, I thought you trusted me. Izuku, that's why 𝐻𝐿 couldn't read his mind earlier. I hypothesized that if he shared the same elemental power over wind like Red Tornado and he was immune to her mind reading from before, then only one logical explanation would explain it. He was an android inside and out. He explained as he walked over towards her and patted her shoulder. Izuku, nice job, 𝐻𝐿. 𝐻𝐿? Thanks, Izuku. It was all thanks to you. Izuku, please, I can't take all the credit. We all played a special part in this. He said as he walked over towards the robot and picked up a piece of material that belonged to it. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, sweet souvenir. He said, holding the eyeball in his hand as the others walked up towards 𝐻𝐿. 𝐀𝐮, we should have had more faith in you. 𝐬𝐿𝐼, yeah, you rocked this mission. Get it, Robin? Forget it, we're just turbed that you're on the team. 𝐻𝐿, thanks you guys. They said unbeknownst to them they were being watched by someone from the other eye on the ground. Within a lab, a scientist was working on something as he looked up to see the man who was actually behind the human android watching with concern. Scientist, see Brahm, aren't you glad I didn't let you wear the armor? He said to the man known as Brahm as he cut the visual to look at the mad scientist. Brahm, extremely professor, but aren't you upset? Scientist, I'm convinced that our operation was successful and that the real tornado was somewhere close to the vicinity. Besides, you know science. Advances in sticks and sparks. Even failure can be obstructive, and I say we learned quite a lot today. Mount Justice. After making it back to the cave, the team set down the pieces from the android on top of the table. Izuku, this thing was shown to have the power to beat you and to try and reprogram you. The purpose for why is unknown. Red Tornado agreed. 𝐻𝐭, is that why you chose not to help us? Red Tornado, no. This was your battle. I do not believe it is my role to solve your problems for you, nor should you do for mine, he said as the other were quietly working on the robot as they watched from behind. 𝐻𝐭, but what if you were in danger? Red Tornado, consider this matter closed, he said, walking away from her as the others watched as he left. Wally, Batman, Aquaman, Green Lantern, or Flash. They'd hop right in to fix things. Robin, if we're going to have a babysitter, a heartless machine is exactly what we need. Wally, dude. Red Tornado, inaccurate, he says as everyone looks over towards him. Red Tornado, I have a heart. Carbon steel alloy. I also have excellent hearing. He corrected him as Robin was surprised that he heard him, now feeling bad for what he had said. Robin, sorry. I'll strive to be more accurate. Izuku, and be more respectful, he said after karate chopping his head as he groaned due to the pain. Once Red Tornado was gone, the group was ready to leave as 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, Robin, and Wally walked out together. Wally, Speedy was so wrong. Robin, this team thing. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, might just work out, they all said as Izuku walked with Superboy as they were about to head out, but he saw that Superboy had a mixed expression on his face as he looked at 𝐻𝐭. Smiling, he just gave him a little push on his shoulder as Superboy turned towards 𝐻𝐭. Superboy, sorry, he said with a small sincere smile as 𝐻𝐭 smiled, receiving his apology. Joining the two, they all walked out of the cave as they left. Another night completed with a first team mission.